From the gridiron to the court, talking all that is sports. Members of the Busted Up Nation bring to you our nation's sports show. Here are your hosts, John Blaine, Stephen White, Hijacker Mike, and Carl Roberts.
Welcome, everybody, to the first installment of our nation's sports show right here on YouTube. I am John. I am the host of this fantastic show. I am joined by a great group of people. Get to them in a second. You can join us in one of two ways. You can join us either through Discord. If you are part of the Busted Open Discord, just go down to where it says Our Nation Sports Show. That's where you can interact with us. However, if you are not on Discord, you can also go to our social media. You can find us on Twitter at ON Sports Show. We're on Twitter, Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on every social media site you guys can think of. So before we get to what we have coming up tonight, I want to bring in who I have. Starting off, he came in late, but he's helping us out big time. Out on the West Coast, my brother from another mother, Hijacker Mike. Hijacker, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing pretty good, John. Just out here living it up, ready to roll with the first edition of the sports show, my man. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. We now go from the West Coast to North Carolina for the person who I think is basically second in command to this show. He's given me a lot of advice on tips.
Yes, I have.
And that would be Stevie Wonder himself, Stephen Wyden. Stephen, how you doing today, buddy?
Look at you with the energy. I love it, man. This is the first edition of this show. Let's have a great show. As Guns would say, hey, let's go. Let's go. It's going to be fun.
But the last person I want to bring in is also somebody who is going to be helping out with the show, from time to time. He lives in Jersey. I don't know if he's dug himself out yet from the 3 feet of snow. That would be Carl Roberts. Carl, how you doing tonight?
What's up, guys?
So, guys, to people who are watching and people who are listening on Discord, this is the sports show. We still have the Nation show that will come to you every Saturday night, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. This show will come to you every Thursday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So I just want to give that out there before we get any further. But, guys, we talk wrestling Saturday nights. We have a lot of great people on. This whole show basically came to the fruition because Steven and I kind of thought about it, and we thought, what would we like for us to have our own sports show? Not that we don't want to talk about wrestling, but if you are there, and unfortunately not many people are, but if you're lucky enough to be there in the after Zoom dark, whatever you want to call it, Steven and myself and several other members get into very interesting sports discussions, into very heated sports discussions.
I was just about to say heated. Sometimes we get heated.
Yeah.
Because we're passionate about other things besides wrestling.
Absolutely. Yep. The thing also, wrestling is predetermined. Sports are not. But I'm moving on now from that. So, guys.
Good boy.
We are less than a couple of days away from Super Bowl 55 happening between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But before we get to the big game, I didn't want to bring everybody up to date on how we got to this point, but we'll get to that in a second. The one thing about us is we all like different teams. I'm a Giants fan. Steven is a San Fran, right?
Yes, San Francisco. Get it right. Your first day on the job.
Thanks. Carl is a New England Patriots fan, and Hijacker was a Raiders fan until they left him to go to Vegas.
Yeah, that's right.
So Hijacker, I'll let you lead this one off. Talk to us about the Raiders this year. What did you think of how they did?
They did exactly how I wanted them to do. Yeah, I'm still bothered, but to be honest with you, I don't see why Mark Davis was quick to bring in John Gruden. Del Real was still doing a fabulous job. Yeah, they had that bad year, but that was expected after Carr broke his leg and the team went south, because I think that team was very dangerous that year. He got hurt. When he got hurt, he was probably the top quarterback in the league, probably behind Brady. As much as I hate to say it, Brady is from out here.
And don't forget Matt Ryan that season as well, because Matt Ryan had
yeah.
a great season as well, as he was the MVP that year as well.
Most definitely. So, I haven't really kept on football, but when, the Nation Show brought me on to talk football earlier in the football season late last year, it kind of sparked me and brought me back. But back to the Raiders. Yeah, is their first year in Vegas, which bothered me because they used to be 10 minutes down the freeway from me. It just, you lose all hope, and, you just don't have any interest anymore when your team leaves your city 2 times.
Yeah, one time, okay, twice. I can see where you're coming from that.
Yeah.
But one thing also I want to get with your team before we get to, the Patriots and Steven's team. Your team has been brought up in the news recently. Your Raiders there, as far as them being one of the landing spots for Deshaun Watson. As somebody who saw the Raiders, do you think Watson would fit on that team?
He's a running quarterback. He might. They probably end up going to like the run and shoot. Probably go into the shotgun a lot more than Carr would be. But then again, I don't know. I don't know what Gruden's style is. I don't think Gruden wants a running quarterback. He wants a guy that can hang out in the pocket. Look at Gruden 20 years ago when he pulled him from Kansas City. Rich Gannon was a pocket passer. Gannon, only time he took off running was for his life.
Yeah.
And I don't think Gruden wants a runner. I think Gruden wants a guy that'll sit in the pocket and sling the ball to the receivers, tight ends, halfbacks, and so forth.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, if I've learned anything from watching football, when you're a pocket passer quarterback, the only time you are running is when you have one of the big defensive linemen coming right at you. So yeah,
exactly.
I can totally get that. Going to move now from Raiders to New England, and that's where we're bringing Carl Roberts. Carl, what's your thoughts on your team this year? How do you think they did?
All right. So, yes, the biggest news that came out of New England in the offseason was Tom Brady going down to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. People are like, oh, he left the team for more money. It's not that he left the team for more money. He actually wanted to get himself another championship. All right. So he won the Super Bowl. He moved on. Other quarterbacks have done that in the past. So now we're in a rebuilding stage. So standing wise, we came in third in the AFC East. Not a bad thing with a brand new quarterback that 9 out of 10 times is throwing an interception. He's learning the dynamics of the New England plays. But just looking over the stats between this year's opponents and us, yeah, there's a lot of areas that needs to be worked on. We definitely need to find a starting quarterback that can learn the different positions better. Tight ends are coming around. There's a lot that needs to be worked on. And one of the things that's coming out now in the news is that it seems that Cam Newton won't be re-signed because it was only a 1-year contract.
Yep.
But now, as of this morning, word has it that New England and Wentz are in talks. So we'll see how that goes.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
The thing is, though, if I learned anything, obviously, me being a New Yorker and all, New England, to me, the fan base doesn't know what it's like to be on to not have a playoff type season.
This is the first year since 2008 that we haven't made the playoffs.
Yeah, but even that year, though, didn't you guys go 11-5 still?
Yes, you did.
Yes. And the only reason we went 11-5 is because Tom Brady came in replacing Drew Bledsoe, who got taken out at a Jets game.
No, wasn't that 08 was Matt Castle.
08 was Matt Castle when Brady went down with the injury.
With the knee injury.
That's right. I'm sorry. It was 2001.
2001 is when Brady came in
Correct. So he's been
2001.
in the league 20 years.
Yeah.
In 1996 is when I took Bledsoe down in practice.
That's right.
But
That's your
won't talk
moment of
about
glory
that.
there, bud.
We won't talk about that today.
That's your moment of glory.
Hijacker
Yeah.
got it again.
That's why you got the nickname Hijacker.
I almost hijacked his career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, but then look at it. You hijacked his career, and then Brady came to New England, and the rest is history.
Pretty much.
So
Yeah.
anybody listening in New England, congratulate Hijacker on why your team did so well for so long.
But also,
Yeah.
too, I'm going to say this. Gronk, Brady, Belichick. That dynamic right there, those three right there had the chemistry.
Yes.
What they need to do now is find the chemistry between the head coach, quarterback, a tight end, and your wide receivers.
Well, that's what New England had for so long. It didn't
Right.
matter who you plugged in there. Wasn't there time
Because they had Brady, because Brady could throw.
Brady could throw to anybody.
He could throw to he could throw to Chad for all we care for. Hey Chad,
Exactly.
Go catch pass Chad from Albany and then score a touchdown while you're at it.
No offense, Steve. He could throw to you and make a catch.
I might be blind, but I could probably catch a pass too. To say, hey, run this route. Hey, count the steps you're gonna run, and then catch it.
Okay.
Touchdown.
Hold on. Look at what year was it when James White was playing for you guys? The running back. Was that during the Atlanta Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Okay. I can tell you right now, I never heard James White's name before that Super Bowl. One thing.
You may have been living under a rock because I knew who he was during that season.
Let's move on from that.
We also have players that nobody has heard of until all of a sudden they're starting getting passes from Brady.
Yes.
Mhm. But even go back to the early days of New England. Not only was it your offense that was great, look at that defense with Teddy Bruschi and Richard Seymour, and oof.
We just actually had a guy retire not too long ago. Number 50 from us. Yeah.
Nikovic, right?
Thank you, Nikovic. When you lose guys to retiring or they're moving on, you got to replace that position. And it's going to take 2 or 3 guys to fill that one position the right way.
Yeah. And
it's like any other team.
Exactly. And I think the thing is also when you look at that team and how that team was built, that was a diamond in the rough kind of team. Let's call it what it is.
That was a dynasty team.
And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is you're seeing that same format in Kansas City.
Yep. And there's a reason why.
Which we
Look
will
at
get.
who the coach.
Oh,
I was
know.
just going to say, look who the coaches are.
Yeah, I know. Hijacker, we have a comment from our Discord server.
Yeah, we have Kevin in Mass. He says here, most Patriots fans don't know what it's like to have a losing team, not since 2001. He says he was too young to know of the bad years, but his dad remembers the 2 winning teams of the late 80s and the early 90s.
Right.
Yeah. It's just the way that team, and they always say, dynasties don't last that long. I mean, look at Seattle and how long that run lasted. That was what, 2 years? 3 at best?
3 at best, yes.
New England, what they had, I mean, they were at the top of I wouldn't even say top of the NFL, top of the AFC almost for over 2 decades.
Yep.
To be able to be at the top of your game for that long, I don't think we're ever going to see again. As much as everybody says, and I know, like I said before, about how Mahomes and Andy Reid and the Chiefs are turning into the early days of New England, I can't even see them doing it. Because I think at some point, I think you're going to start getting teams. I think Baltimore may finally wake up at some point, and Lamar Jackson, may actually know how to be a quarterback and not make dumb moves. But to me, New England, and this is coming from a New Yorker, New England to me is a team that I don't think we're ever going to see again. And I know, like I said before, I said it with Kansas City. I don't know. I have my things back, but we'll get to Kansas City in hour number 2. But Steven, I want to get to your team now, or as I call them, the injury bug of the NFC West.
All right.
Well, hold on a second before you do that. That
Yeah.
was also another problem that New England had. We had a lot of injuries, and then also too with this pandemic, you had a lot of players being pulled off the roster because of COVID.
Exactly. Steven, before we get to you, Hijacker, we have another comment from Discord.
Yeah, we have another comment from Discord coming from Lakafunza. He says he strongly disagrees with the KC comment. Mahomes was not a
Yep.
6th-round pick. They had some of those players in place prior to Mahomes.
Okay. My thing is this.
Like a goddamn racehorse.
What the hell was that?
2 cups.
Whoever's
Is that in the
unmuted
Discord?
and please mute yourself. Moving on. My only thing is this though. I equate it in the sense of when Brady got drafted, yeah, Mahomes didn't get drafted. I agree with Lakafunza on that. But unless you're a fan of Texas Tech, did you really know anything about Mahomes before he got drafted? That's the
Not really.
question. Look at Brady. Did anybody really know anything about Brady before he got drafted?
No.
Nope.
No.
There we go. And look what both of them have done. Yes, obviously they've been in the league at much different time periods, but Brady's been in the league 20 years. Mahomes is entering year 3. Mahomes right now, if the Chiefs never win another Super Bowl again, he already wrote his ticket for Canton with what he has accomplished in 2 years.
In 3 years, actually.
In 3 years, you're
Third
right.
year in the league.
I don't know many people who by year 3 are already in their second Super Bowl.
And already won a Super Bowl and the regular season MVP.
Exactly.
And who threw 50 touchdowns in his first starting season.
Exactly.
Correct.
To me, Mahomes, we're seeing the next Brady with Mahomes.
It's possible.
It's really, but now, Steven, I want to get to your team now. I call him the injury bug because, man, your team got riddled big time with injuries this year. So talk to us about them. How do you think they did this year?
Well, all right. So I said during before the season started to you guys on the NFL show that we did on the Nation show back in August of last year.
Mhm.
I said they are going to be doing terrible because I felt like they were riding that high of winning the Super Bowl, and then Kansas City knocked it out of their grasp, 31-20 in the fourth quarter, scoring 21 unanswered points. Taking the game over like they did, especially with the 3rd and 15 play for the 35-yard line with that wasp play with Mahomes passing it to Tyreek Hill down the field. And I said during the beginning of the season that San Francisco was going to have an up and heel battle as far as battling to try to get back to the playoffs because the competition was heavy in the NFC West with the Los Angeles Rams, with the Seattle Seahawks, all those teams. Even the Cardinals were trying their best,
Right.
And I just had a feeling that Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Bosa, and all those guys are going to have a hard time season because they did. And it's not surprising because the games they had that they played with, people coming down with the injury bug, they were having close games. They had the 2 games in the New York regions against the Jets and the Giants and had those injuries against the Giants, I believe.
Yeah.
And against the Giants. And then the next week they faced the Jets and they were complaining about, oh, it's the field. No, shut your mouth. Because San Francisco, you had an opportunity to get back to the playoffs because you had the same team basically going into the next season because Kyle Shanahan built this team from the ground up. And what did you do? You didn't get the job done, complaining. Now it's year number 3 coming up. Shut your mouths, play football, and go. Because I am not surprised with this season this year because they thought that, oh, we were going to get back to the Super Bowl, and they didn't because they didn't play and beat the teams that they were supposed to beat. They lost some of the worst teams in the league this year, and that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, no, I think with San Fran, I think you can say this for a lot of teams, the injury bug really hit them. But I
Well,
think
also
with
too, hold on, John,
Yeah,
to
go
go
ahead.
off of you, not only did they have the injury bugs, you had this pandemic, which was another bigger factor than the injuries.
you had a lot of guys who basically said, I'm not playing this year and I'm opting out.
Exactly.
Now let's get to my team. I don't know what to say about this team. I really don't. Going back to the football show that we did back in August, I remember sitting there on that show and saying that this Giants team was not going to get any more than 3 wins. No, I think I said 2 wins, if I remember correctly. I said I'd be shocked if they get 5 wins. Lo and behold, I think they ended up going 6-10 this past year. 6-10 in a division that it seemed like every other week it was Philly didn't want to win the division. Dallas didn't want to win the division. The Washington team didn't want to win the division. Nobody wanted to win that damn division. And we're also, certain things that our teams have to look at. The Giants, I hope to God, can fix that offensive line big time. Because you need to get a decent offensive line because you're going to get Saquon back come next year. Once Saquon comes back, he has a good offensive line. Just give him the ball and run. My issue with them, they showed signs, but they still have a lot of pieces and a lot of things that they have to figure out. And unfortunately, when it comes to the New York market, Giants fans are getting a little antsy now. Because the Giants have not, last time they were in the playoffs was 2015
Yes.
when they lost in the wild card to Philly in the first. Was it Philly in the first round?
Green Bay.
Green Bay in the first round. My bad.
Yeah,
New York-
the night the night before OBJ went on a boat. Whoop de doo.
Yeah. People are in those boats. I don't get it.
Moving on.
But talking about a sinking boat, let's go to Pittsburgh.
Oh boy.
Well, you have another one before that.
What's up?
Jets.
Oh boy.
Now, are they a sinking boat, or is that boat just sunk and just not going to be able to
It's been
recover?
It's been
It's been sunk, but the Jets fans and the team should have had the first round pick technically, the number 1 overall pick for the NFL draft this year, and
Yeah.
it looks like they lost it because of that one game they won.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
They actually
I'll
should
say
have
it right.
had another game. They should have actually beat the Raiders. The Raiders got lucky on the very last
Number
play
0.
of the season
Yeah.
of the game.
They
So,
should have beaten New England.
And they blew that game. I'm like, well, it's the Jets.
But here's the thing, though, because I know we were talking before about Deshaun Watson with going to the Raiders. The other team that's been linked to Deshaun Watson is the Jets. Now, like the Raiders with Derek Carr, Jets have Sam Darnold. Do you turn around if you're the Jets and you're Robert Slee or whatever his last name is? Do you turn around if you're the ownership and go, we're going to move on from Darnold? Because the kid has talent. The kid has potential. There's a reason why the Jets picked him with the number 3 overall pick a couple of years ago. I think, honestly, and I'm going to say this right now, when you look at the reason why Sam Darnold has not shown his potential, it's because of the Jets. Look at who they put around him. Steven, how many times have I said to you that we always talk about offensive line when it comes to the National Football League?
Yes.
How many times have I said to you, you have to have a good offensive line because it doesn't matter who you have back there, you're going to be screwed.
Yeah.
And look at the Jets. The Jets are a clear example of a team that had a terrible offensive line, a head coach who, I don't even want to talk about him.
Clueless.
But I'm going to say this. There's actually one group of people that didn't do their job for this past season.
Okay.
And that's your scouts. Your scouts are supposed to go out and evaluate college players. And if there's a player that is good enough in high school that you want to sign, well, you're supposed to go out and scout that person ahead of time.
Mhm.
And they didn't do their job.
No. But here's the thing also that we're forgetting. Look at who the Jets running back was this year. Frank Gore. Frank Gore is like, 112.
Something like that.
Frank Gore came from 49ers.
Yeah. But when Frank Gore was in the 49ers, he was good.
He was in his prime.
He was in his prime. But here's the thing, though. That's a very common thing when it comes to New York teams. Look at how many New York teams in the past have gotten a player towards the end of their career because they figure, oh, they come to New York, they're coming to the big stage. Maybe they'll have that one last bolt of energy left in them.
Yep.
Prime example, in the 70s when Willie Mays left the Giants,
Mhm.
the Mets signed him in 73. And what happened?
Yep.
Bust.
Nobody remembers him being on the Mets. Everybody remembers him being a part of the Giants.
Yep. You talk about that being the sinking ship with the Jets. Well, I think you brought the biggest sinking ship of 2020, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Bingo.
This is a team. We've said it. They're one of the people who he'll be on the show next week is Marks from New Mexico. He's one of many Pittsburgh fans who we interact with every day. And I said it to him, and I'll say it right here. When the Pittsburgh Steelers were 11-0, they were, to me, I don't think they would have. They got to 11-0 because they had a very easy schedule.
They didn't hardly play anybody. They beat Tennessee when Tennessee was in limbo during the middle of their season before they hit their hot streak.
Mhm.
And I said it to Urinating Tree on the Nation show back on December the 10th. Who the hell is this team beating? Nobody!
Well,
And I stand correct because they had nobody that was great enough that they beat besides Cleveland, who was not hot at the time, a Baltimore team that was sinking, and then they caught hot. But at the time, they played some of the weakest teams in the NFL and beat their competition. And then when they were 11-0, like you said, John, I said that they are the luckiest undefeated team in any North American sports. And the moment they lost to the Washington pathetic football team, how do you give that game away? Run the ball in the fourth quarter, you idiots. You're sitting there telling me, oh, we just give it to Big Ben, drop back, pass the ball. The guy's 37 years old, 38 years old, whatever the hell he is. He's old. He's not washed up. He's beaten up, beaten down. And you're throwing the ball? You might as well throw the game away because that's what the hell they did. 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, and Washington beats Pittsburgh by 6, 23-17. There you go. And then that began their downfall, losing to the pathetic Cincinnati Bengals, which was piss pathetic. Because I remember that game, we're like, what the hell is going on with this team? They are losing to the worst teams in NFL history. And then they get shellacked by the Buffalo Bills, which was not surprising. I said they're going to get beat by Buffalo. And they did. They soundly beat Pittsburgh in that game. And Josh Allen went 8 for 8 in the third quarter in that game and threw a touchdown. Roethlisberger was getting the bejesus smacked out of him by that Buffalo swarming defense. And Pittsburgh fans are going, oh, what the hell is wrong with our team? You should know what the hell's wrong with your team. Because your team, I knew right then and there, was going nowhere but down to the losing bottom of the pole. And they did. Not surprising to Cleveland. And Cleveland beat the living shit out of them in the first 15 minutes of that game, 28-0. The game was over. First snap of the game, what snap over Ben Roethlisberger's head? Game over. You're done. You're dead. Dead.
Okay, we can move on now. Before we get to that, hijacker, we have another comment from Discord.
Yeah, we have a comment from Lack of Funza here talking about the mindset is more of a Belichickian thought process. I don't think it's a Jets thing per se. He thinks it's more dependent on the coach and his thought process trying to get more bang for your buck. Bringing in the veteran player or disgruntled player to recharge them. I would assume he was referring to the Jets there when we were speaking about the Jets a few minutes ago.
Okay. Talking about Frank Gore.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And yeah, I mean, I don't blame a lot. Going back to the Jets for a second. I don't blame a lot on the Jets on Frank Gore. And I agree. A lot of my blame with the Jets goes to that crazy-eyed guy who they call their head coach for 2 years, who for some reason doesn't have the worst record when it comes to head coaches. And
Which is shocking.
for the Jets,
Correct.
Rich Kotite, I think, still has the worst record.
Right.
I think you're correct on that. Yes.
But getting back to Lack of Funds' comment about bringing in veterans and recharging them. If you remember from the Steelers, Antonio Brown got released.
Yep.
He came up to New England. He only played one game.
Caught a touchdown.
Caught a touchdown. What happened the next week?
Done.
He was released.
Actually,
reason
you
is-
skipped a team in that process too. I don't want to speak
right.
about it, but you skipped a team. In that
But yeah,
process.
he purposely did that.
And it's funny because I don't want to cut you off there, Carl, but it's funny because I don't know if you guys got to see the interaction that guy had with the quarterback out here. He made it look like, hey, you're my Tom Brady. Let's go get this. And then what happens? He kills his career pretty much.
Yep.
And he gets let go. And it's like, dude, you could have had something special out here with him, regardless of my feelings or thoughts of the team. But he could have had something special if he would have just came out here and played. But
And that's where that's getting to the point that I'm doing. He came to New England. Sorry. He played one game, caught a touchdown. But the problem is his mentality of getting himself into trouble with what he says and what he does off the field. Belichick is like, no, sorry. That's not how we do things here. We are a professional team. We support each other. You're a detrimental to the team. And they released him. And then he went to the Cleveland Browns. So, again, it all depends on how the player is at the time that they go to the other team, whether or not they're going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to look at another guy, look at Des Bryant.
Correct.
Same situation.
Goes to Baltimore. At first, he was on New Orleans at first, and then he goes to Baltimore, thinking that he's going to hit the next stride with Lamar Jackson, and obviously that didn't happen.
No, but we can. Okay, you want to talk about the famous one of all, Terrell Owens.
Oh boy,
T.O.
Bingo.
that's my quarterback.
How many times did that guy get into trouble every other week? It seemed like.
Yep.
Where he had the incident with the Sharpie incident.
Yep.
He had the incident. Was he with Dallas at the time when he was doing something on the star and at the 50-yard line? Was he with Dallas?
I
now, or
believe
was he
so.
still-
Philadelphia. He was from Philadelphia.
He was
right?
Philly at that time, yeah.
Okay, but
But
you
they
wanna
were
talk-
they were playing against Dallas.
yeah, but he's probably the
But-
most well-known one when it comes
Well,
to
John, and I'll say this right here. Terrell Owens might be the most famous one of all time, but we might have a famous one on our hands right now. That is Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster dancing
Oh yeah.
on the opposing team's
Head.
You're
Yeah.
basically digging your own grave.
And the worst
And-
is if you go to YouTube and type in famous ejections of the game, that's like the second video they show.
Mhm.
It's like, dude, really? You're a professional. You're being paid this big money to play, and you're going to pull a child move?
And yes, and talking about what Pittsburgh did this year, I think that was their downfall during the remainder of their season, how childish Smith-Schuster was towards the team and towards the other opponents by disrespecting the other team's logos and stuff. And that's what caused them to basically hit their downfall, because in that final game against Cleveland, they lost, no surprisingly, even though it was a close game. But that was a close game that could have gone either way. Now, if Roethlisberger played that game, they may have beaten Cleveland and knocked them out of the playoffs. But Cleveland won the game, had the momentum on their side, and they shellacked Pittsburgh, one and done in the playoffs. And, you know, we always talked about Mike Tomlin having that Mike Tomlin game. Well, he had several this year. And, you know, talking about this postseason, I knew that Pittsburgh was going to be done based off how they were going the rest of the season. Because how do you lose 4 out of your next 5 games? That is just pathetic. That is so bad. And, you know, I kind of want to transition here into the playoffs, you know, how we got to where we're going to
Well, I just want to bring up one last thing with Pittsburgh. Actually, it kind of coincides with where you're going. So go ahead.
Yeah, you know, with the season, you know, with the playoffs. I mean, they had against Cleveland. Cleveland beat them, and then you know, Cleveland goes and face Kansas City. All right, and then they had that game. Cleveland put a hell of a fight against Kansas City, and Kansas City ended up winning the game despite Mahomes coming down with that concussion. Mahomes played well in the game when he was there, but the moment that sealed that game for the Cleveland Browns was the touchback towards the end zone by the receiver, by him fumbling the ball, and then Kansas City recovers, touchback. That sealed the game right there for Kansas City, because if Higgins would have scored that touchdown, who knows? We might be looking at a different result. We can't with Cleveland, maybe in the Super Bowl. And then talking about switching to the NFC, you had a team like Green Bay. Sure, LA beat Seattle 30-20, but Seattle didn't show up. And I knew right then and there that was their only game that they were going to basically win. They go to Green Bay. Green Bay shells them by 15 or whatever it was, 12-15, 30-18. And I knew right then and there that Green Bay had a tough hill battle. You know, they had a good chance because Rodgers had a hell of a season, you know, 48 touchdowns, great season. And Tampa Bay hit a hot streak, winning their next 7+ games. And then they went on that run of the playoffs, beat the Washington team in their game. And then they won against the Saints, turning away a Grizzly veteran in Drew Brees, 3 interceptions. That to me was the most shocking game of the playoffs, because New Orleans, I thought, was going to beat Tampa Bay and face Green Bay in Green Bay for the NFC Championship to go to the Super Bowl. No, that didn't happen. Brady didn't play that great either, but he didn't have the turnovers that Drew Brees had. And then
Well, let's wait on that for a second, because I know where you're going with this, but we'll get to that in 1 second. I want to go back to Pittsburgh for 1 second though. We talk about on the show about how Pittsburgh was a fallen ship, you know, a sunken ship this year.
Yes.
And they lost 4 out of 5. Question I want to throw to the 3 of you, and I want to throw it to Discord as well. The failures of Pittsburgh this year, who do you put the blame on? Do you put it on Tomlin, or do you put it on Big Ben and that offense, or do you put it on the defense? Steven, we'll go to you first on that one.
It's the whole team. The entire football team. Plain and simple. It's Tomlin, it's Roethlisberger, it's the defense. It's not a singular component on whose fault is it for Pittsburgh's decline. It is the entire football team.
Carl, what about you?
I'm in agreement with Steven, because you know what? It's the team. You always hear there is no I in team. And it basically goes right down from the coach, the head coach, to the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, down to your players.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is Pittsburgh was winning so many games. They're like, oh, we can relax a little bit. Well, they relaxed a little too much, and that's what burnt them out.
Yep.
Exactly. Hijacker, what about you? Who do you put the blame on? Do you put it on the head coach? Do you put it on the offense? Who do you put it on?
It's 53 guys on that roster. You look at it, Ben was playing probably the best ball of his career at a point in that beginning of that season in that run.
Mm-hmm.
receivers started dropping the ball in that losing streak they had. Receivers weren't focused on catching the ball during that time. Tomlin put in the plays. You could practice the plays until your legs and arms fall off during practice, but it's your job to execute your route, your blocking a pattern, your the halfback, whether you got to hit the block and run out into the flats and catch the ball. You have a job to do, and somewhere they lost, in my opinion, they lost focus. Passes weren't caught. Big Ben, I think that may have deflated him a little bit and knocked him off his game. So it's a whole team situation. The coach has got to get on these guys and tell them, hey, knock it off. You're out here. You're in the big league, son. You need to play the game. So it's a whole team effort.
Yeah, and can I pose this question to the three of you? Do you think Pittsburgh's downfall was that Baltimore game? Because the game that got rescheduled 3 freaking times.
Yeah.
That iced them.
That
iced them way too much. But not only that, remember, Roethlisberger also went down with a concussion this year.
Correct.
That killed him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
because the captain of the ship went down.
Yep. And we were talking about their decline in the playoffs. On the other side of the season, Buffalo had an incredible season this year for their standards.
Yes.
They played tremendous ball. Josh Allen, great quarterback play this year. Didn't have hardly any interceptions this year. Threw a lot of touchdowns. He had Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs and all these great weapons. The running game, the defense was great. They were the second seed in the playoffs. They beat a resounding Indianapolis team in the wild card round. And then they played, at the time, a hot Baltimore team because Baltimore won their next 5 games. And then they beat Tennessee in the playoff game, in the wild card game, by 3. And then they faced Buffalo. And we were actually doing a watch along that night on Hard to Kill from Impact. And I was giving a couple of score updates. And I gave the big update along with John from South Jersey, talking about how Lamar Jackson may have just thrown the game away, literally, by throwing a 100-plus yard interception, pick 6 to the house, and the game was basically ice, sealed, delivered, signed, sealed, delivered. I am yours. That was it. Their season was done. And on top of that, he suffers a ending game concussion. And then, like I said before, Kansas City beats Cleveland. They go to the AFC Championship game. And and Buffalo is up 9-0. And I'm like, okay, it's a matter of time before Kansas City takes over and starts scoring these touchdowns. And they did. And they humbled a very resounding Buffalo Bills team. And Buffalo next year, ladies and gentlemen, will be back as contenders because they are one move away from getting that piece to get to their core to get them a chance to vow for a Super Bowl contending championship.
Here's the thing, though. I lost my train of thought there for a second. Oh yeah, here's what I was going to go with originally, folks. Yes, that's our own Stevie Wonder singing Stevie Wonder. You see, I know exactly where you're going with that one there, but no, I just want to go back quickly to kind of give my take on who I put the blame on, so to speak. I think I got to be in agreement with you. The coach can do as much as he can. The offense can do as much as they can. Does it sound like somebody's sleeping right now? Am I hearing things?
No, Carl's good.
I'm good.
No, okay. Thought I heard something.
It's okay. It's okay. Pittsburgh was asleep at the wheel during the middle of the season, anyways.
Exactly.
But I think when you look at the whole AFC, and we'll go to the NFC side in a second. Steven, going back to your thing for a second, I think Buffalo is going to have to do a lot because you see that Kansas City team. And to me, Kansas City, yes, I know they are beatable. We've seen it happen. But I've also made the comment of postseason is a different season.
Yes.
And Kansas City, when it comes to the postseason, they are tough to beat. You almost, and especially when you get fans coming back, Arrowhead has been known as being one of the most difficult stadiums to play in.
Right.
If, let's say, next year, when we have the AFC Championship game at the end of next season. Let's say Buffalo is playing Kansas City. Let's say hypothetically it works out like that.
Mhm.
Buffalo played Kansas City with no fans, with a few fans.
Buffalo Stadium had fans.
I thought, oh yeah, okay.
It did.
Flip-flop that.
Buffalo had fans for the last 2 games of the playoffs.
Yeah, I was saying not the AFC Championship game. Oh no, wait, there were fans there.
Mm-hmm.
And in Kansas
Yeah,
City.
Kansas City had fans in their stadium
Correct.
as well.
There were a select few stadiums that allowed fans in them.
Now, some of the stadiums, when the playoffs were starting, like Green Bay at all this year, did not have any fans during their season. New Orleans did not have any fans at all during their season this year.
Gillette Stadium did
in
not
the
allow
playoffs.
any fans.
MetLife didn't
The
either.
playoffs.
Not even for the playoffs, Steve.
No,
For the entire season from-
but what I'm saying is during the playoffs, Green Bay had fans during that
Yes.
playoff game. During that playoff game in New Orleans had fans, not during the regular season.
No. It's slowly starting to come back.
Yep.
Where they're allowing fans back into stadiums at a little limited amount with the protocols of the spacing and all, which is great.
Right.
To me, getting a chance to go watch a football game in a stadium is all fine and dandy as long as the protocols are met with what we have going on in this world right now.
Yep.
If not, I would rather sit home and watch it on TV, watch it on the internet, just because it's football.
Exactly. Now I remember what I was going for before I went off on that whole thing. Hijacker, you made it. You said something about how we have 2 comments in Discord.
Yeah, there's 3 comments here in Discord. You want me to go ahead and read them?
Go right ahead.
Go right ahead.
All right. The first one is from Kevin in Mass. He says, on Pittsburgh, he thinks everyone is to blame. Tomlin for not reining in some of his younger players, just like Juju and Claypool. The defense didn't play fantastic down the stretch, and Ben looked like he couldn't throw well at all down the stretch. It's an across the board sharing the blame. And his comment, also he has a comment saying here, he wishes that Nickelodeon would have more games in the playoffs next season. The slime in the end zone for New Orleans' first TD was awesome. Then we got here from Lackafunza, not for nothing, Steelers were pretender off rip. Look at their schedule, it was either trash-ass teams or teams that hadn't found their footing yet. And the moment they hit a solid defense, they shit all over themselves. Come on now, saying that now that it was the cause of Ben's concussion, bruh.
Interesting response. By the way, if anybody who's listening on Discord wants to call in, you're more than welcome to. Believe me.
Definitely.
Just let Hijacker know that you want to make a comment. We'll bring you on if you want to call in. Believe me. But I like that comment of bruh.
Bruh.
Since we are on the subject of football, before we get into the second hour, do you guys want to talk about the stupidities that some of our fearless players have made over the years?
In 1 second, because I know we got to just get quickly to the NFC side of the picture, because I know there's a certain person on here, Steven, who has something to say about Green Bay. So, Steven, the floor is yours. Take it away.
It's the NFC Championship game. You're in Green Bay. You're home against Tampa Bay, against TB12.
Are you trying to rhyme there?
Shut up.
Just let him run.
I'm just saying. It's the first half. With a few seconds left to go in that first half. And Tom Brady throws a bomb to Scotty Miller and the defense does not know what the heck is going on. And they blew the freaking coverage, and they went up by 3 scores, did Tampa Bay. Second half, they're up 28-10, and then Green Bay makes that touchdown. They're kind of back in the game. And then here's where the train wreck starts happening for Green Bay. Brady throws not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions basically in a row. Green Bay scores 1 touchdown and leaves 14 points on the board. And then it's the fourth quarter. Green Bay's driving against his defense after stopping Tampa Bay. They get down towards the end zone. They have 3 chances to get into the end zone, obviously. 3rd and goal, Rodgers looks like he's going to run. And then last second, throw the ball, incomplete. And then this is what got me going crazy and what got a lot of sports fans going crazy. 4th and goal from the 8-yard line. It's Tom Brady. He's got 6 Super Bowls, and you have home field advantage. You're down 31-23. You're down by 8. And you had 3 chances, obviously, to get into the end zone. You blew it. It's 4th and goal from the 8-yard line. 2 minutes and 19 seconds left to go in the 4th quarter. And you kick a fucking field goal? What is wrong with you people? And I'm looking at you, Matt LaFleur, with my blind eyes because I can't see you anyways, and I can't see you anymore, Rodgers. But the simple fact that a blind guy can sit here and have more logic to go forward on 4th and goal from the 8-yard line because it's 2 minutes and 19 seconds. You're down by 8. You kick the field goal. You're down by 5. Now you got to stop them. If you scored the touchdown, you're down by 2 points. You got the 2-point conversion. If you blow it, you still have all 3 get timeouts and the 2-minute warning. You have multiple chances to score a touchdown. You didn't go for it when you should have went for it, scored the touchdown. Even if, like I said, if you blow the 2-point conversion, you're down by 2. And then after that, you stop them. But oh, wait, here's more. They had a chance to stop the Buccaneers, and they blew their opportunity with that. But, oh, by the way, getting called for, wait for it, a face mask. Not even one really face mask call in the game. And the moment Green Bay fans seen that, they were bitching and complaining. Going, oh, my God, why did they throw a flag? Oh, in the 4th quarter during the rest of this game. Wayne Jesus, I wonder. You had 3 opportunities to win the damn game. Plus the 4th and goal from the 8-yard line to score a damn touchdown, and you blew it. And Aaron Rodgers, I am sorry, you're throwing your head coach under the bus. And not saying that, oh, I play a part in this too. And the head coach, you're just as clueless as your star quarterback. That's all I got to say about that, because Green Bay, you're done, and you deserve to sit home with the bitching and complaining that you exampled at the end of that game, you idiots.
Hey, Steven, I heard Green Bay needs an offensive coordinator. You interested?
Well, geez, hijacker. I think I might need to have that job because
They need a head coach.
I think Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers need to have their heads or their eyes, ironically, examined because and their ears examined too. Because Aaron Rodgers is like, wait, you're kicking the field goal? I'm not going to go for it. Why? You're Aaron fucking Rodgers. Go for it. It's a Super Bowl on the line. And you had one big chance to get to the big dance on your home stadium's turf. And you didn't go for it? Why? Because you don't want to be the reason why you lose the game? Oh, well, sorry.
Yeah.
Like James Dorr says, about your damn block.
Every game in the playoff is the Super Bowl. That's plain and simple.
Yeah, exactly. Folks, by the way, if you missed that rant, you can check it on our YouTube page because that will definitely be its own clip.
Well, geez, I guess I'm the highlight of that segment, right? I guess so. Matt LaFleur.
Well, hold on. Not to rain on your parade there, buddy. But I have also something to say about that Aaron Rodgers team. Those Packers. After that game, I think I was talking to you and Marks about this.
Yes.
I thought of this.
Mhm.
Take Aaron Rodgers regular season, he's great. He's one of
Yes.
the top quarterbacks in the league. I'm not taking that away from him. Aaron Rodgers come the postseason reminds me of a certain Dallas Cowboys quarterback who is now who's part of the broadcast team on CBS in Tony Romo. Think about it for a second. Aaron Rodgers has made it to one Super Bowl when the Packers were the wild card team and they played Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. Has Aaron Rodgers been back to the Super Bowl since?
No.
And that was 2006, if I remember correctly.
No. They went on their playoff run in 2010 season, won Super Bowl 45 against the Steelers, 31-28.
Thank you for that, Elias.
Yes.
Thank you for that, ESPN.
That was, 10 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, because right after was the Giants.
And also too, not to cut you off. What has Rodgers done in these playoff games as far as a lot in the last 10 years? Nothing.
He's choked.
He's choked. He has choked in the biggest spot. And John, you brought that up.
Yeah.
Against the Giants. They went 15-1 in that regular season. Aaron Rodgers was your MVP. And they did not play well. Drop passes after drop passes.
No. And to me, the issue is with Aaron Rodgers, like I said before, regular season, I take him any day in the week. Postseason, Steven, I'd rather have you be my starting quarterback than him.
Oh, I'll throw picks after that. Yeah.
You're blind.
No.
I'm just saying, to me, it's the old saying of what have you done for me lately? What has Aaron Rodgers done for the Green Bay Packers in the last decade?
Nothing except win a couple of MVPs and his backup tight end in the NFC Championship game 6 years ago apparently has a hand catching problem because he can't catch an onside kick against the Seattle Seahawks. But other than that, what has Rodgers done in the NFC Championship game against Atlanta, San Francisco, and now Tampa Bay? Nothing.
Oh no, wait. When the Giants played, then that was Brett Favre still.
Yes.
That was Brett Favre still. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
John, check this out. You know that picture you posted earlier today?
Yeah.
I think someone in Green Bay needs a little bit of that.
Hey, I can give them a good discount. Discount double check. Moving on.
Yeah, there you go.
We do have a quick comment here from Lacafunza on Discord here. He says not to mention they did fire the only head coach that took Rodgers to the Super Bowl.
This is true.
Yep.
Okay, that's all well and good, but to me, that's excuses. Like we were saying before with Pittsburgh, the head coach tells the quarterback what to do.
It's the quarterback's job to make.
It's the quarterback's job to execute it.
Yeah, you got to have the plays.
And like I said during my rant on Mr. Rogers in the neighborhood, he had an opportunity to call an audible and go for it on 4th and goal, and he didn't because he conceded with the coach. Oh, you're the head coach. I'm not going to go for it. No.
Only in 2021 on a sports show do you get a Mr. Rogers reference.
You're welcome.
But this is my point, though. To me, I'm going to say this right now, and I'm going to get heat for this. I don't care. Aaron Rodgers, to me, is not a Hall of Fame worthy quarterback.
Ooh.
He's not.
John, you just.
I'm being quiet on this one.
You just sparked a fire.
You're going to say that after he sat, 3 years behind Favre?
Because I go back to the thing of he's done, except for the one Super Bowl that he won back in 2010, he hasn't done anything.
I get that. But what about the years with what about the years with Peyton Manning? Peyton Manning, it took him years to win that second Super Bowl.
Yeah. Here, Kevin and
Hell,
Mass
Brett-
says he's a
Go
Hall
ahead.
of Fame quarterback, but he's overrated.
That's true. I will agree with that. He's
Now,
overrated.
Kevin is onto something. Yes, I agree with that.
And Lacafunza throws in there, Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl, and he's a Hall of Famer.
He's right.
Correct.
So, look, man, Green Bay will burn a city down for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is their baby. He's their Bart Starr, Brett Favre.
Technically, he's their Tom Brady of Green Bay.
Yeah.
And then you know what? I would make the argument that Brett Favre is the Joe Montana of Green Bay when he played in Green Bay.
True.
Mm-hmm.
He's the
Okay,
quarterback god in Green Bay.
And Brett Favre made it to 2 Super Bowls, won one, and did not make it back to the big game ever again. Was he still not a Hall of Fame quarterback to you, John? Because he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And like I say, when they showed that picture of George Blanda with the Raiders and Tom Brady on the screen, both pretty much the same age. Well, look at the times, man. Marlboros and slamming whiskey before game time was a thing, where here it's about quinoa and Brussels sprouts and eating healthy. So
Yeah.
there you have it, man.
Way different. Also, too, back then, quarterbacks were taking hits hard.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Favre took a beating. Peyton
Now, you touch the quarterback, you're getting a penalty.
Especially if it's a baby. If it's Brady,
oh
Breeze,
my God, you just hit me in the shoulder. Shut up.
you know, but look at it. Like when other guys got hit, like when I was with my Raiders, when Carr was getting hits early on in his year, in his career, when he was getting sacked, 40 times a season, he didn't get those same calls Tom Brady got, Drew Brees, and who else? Eli Manning, Peyton Manning. These guys were
Roethlisberger, yeah.
Yeah, Roethlisberger. Well, hell, sometimes
Phillip
Roethlisberger was getting reamed, man.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Phillip Rivers too.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers.
And like during the NFC Championship game as well, Brady looked the direction where the receiver was, because that's also where the referee was, because he knew if he threw it a certain way that the referee could possibly yank the flag and throw it, and yet he did. Brady is the biggest, whiniest baby in the NFL, but he's so good.
Okay, but we're talking about, quarterbacks of a different time. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that why James Harrison retired from the NFL, the former Pittsburgh Steeler? It was because of the way that, because when he played, you were able to hit the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically said, I'm not going to learn a new way. I'm done.
Because no offense, the new way is you touch a player, you're getting a penalty. It's becoming a baby.
It's horrible.
Look, man, I put 18 years in on the gridiron, from a kid to high school to college, trying to make the pros, when I've told some of you guys the stories of walk-on camps I got into in the 90s. I put my body on the line. I have aches and pains in my body that make me, I'm 43. I feel like some days I'm 80 years
90s.
old, man. Yeah. But it was the price I paid to get to that fame. When I was younger, it was all about money. I want to go make money. And this was back in the early 90s. Money wasn't a major thing like it is today, but still it was a great way to live. But you didn't think, you know what? When I retire, am I going to be able to walk? Am I going to be able to play with my kids? It's your preference.
Was like way back here in your mind.
Yeah. It's your preference. So you know what? If you're going to clothesline the quarterback to sack him like 1972 with Terry Bradshaw going down against the Raiders, then you know what? That's just what it is. You ain't got to go grab his face mask and spin him to the ground. But you know what? If the quarterback's going to get hit 2-3 seconds after the play, as long as you're not cheap shotting him, that's fine.
Yeah.
Coming across the middle is a dangerous route for any wide receiver, halfback, because when that safety's coming across the line, or that outside linebacker's coming, dude, you're going to get hit, and you should know you're going to get hit.
Some of the receivers also, too, Hijacker, have drop passes when they come across the middle, because they know, oh, crap, I'm fixing to get hit. and brace for the hit.
The year Randy Moss was in Oakland 15 years ago, there were plays that he would have made in Minnesota he didn't do in Oakland.
Yeah. I'm completely agreeing with what you guys say. That's why I'm kind of hanging back on this one. But just want to make a quick transition before we get to our Super Bowl coverage, because we are now an hour 2 of the show right now.
And I got one other thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Well, it's about penalties per team for the entire season. Okay, so far. And it's mind-boggling. but the biggest penalties goes against Arizona. Basically, per game is 7 penalties for the game. Who's got the lowest? Who do you guys think here has the lowest penalties in the game?
For this season?
Yep, so far. Just regular season.
Oof.
And it'll blow your damn minds.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say the Jets.
Nope.
Okay, let me ask you this. Are they a top contending team?
Used to be.
The Patriots?
Bingo. 3, figure about roughly 4 per game.
Wow.
Is what they were saying.
Wow.
Compared to last year's was almost 6 per game.
Huh.
That's amazing.
Yeah. People forget how much penalties play a factor in a
Yeah.
game. You have to play.
That could cost you a game.
Yep.
Mhm.
And we've seen
before.
that multiple times. And better yet, we just saw that in the playoffs,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Exactly. Want to talk briefly on one of the surprises of the 2020 season before we get to our Super Bowl coverage, and that's the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I say surprise, and I know there's one Cleveland Browns fan who we all know who didn't see this as a surprise at all.
John, and don't mean to cut you off, but you will be shocked that the guy that we interviewed on December 10th, me and Marks did, Urinating Tree, said that he thought Cleveland was going to have a really good season. I'm like, wow. He said, I figured when Cleveland got a new coach in Kevin Stefanski, they were going to have a pretty good chance at making a run.
Yeah.
And he wasn't wrong.
Absolutely. I only say they're surprised for one reason. Oof, this should get me some heat again.
You're really
You
going.
like-
You
You
like
that
this. You
smoke,
like
huh?
that heat, huh?
John
Yeah.
wants to smoke like the prophets, huh?
How long has Cleveland basically been the bottom of the AFC?
Oh,
I knew
go
you
ahead.
were going there.
But
You're
here's
gonna
the question. Here's the bigger question. Is that before they left or after and came back
Oh,
or during their entire run in Cleveland?
well, to be
I'm talking
fair,
about the modern day.
Thank
version.
you.
yeah.
Hold on. We're talking the older Cleveland Browns. No, those teams were good. Especially they had
And also, too, even in the 80s, they had those runs. Yeah, they had the fumble, the drive, all that stuff, but they had good teams. When they
But
came
he-
back, when they came back to Cleveland in '99, they haven't done nothing.
But here's the thing also. We're talking about those older Cleveland Browns teams. Does anybody remember who is arguably one of the greatest players ever? And I know we say that about Brady, but there's another player who used to play in Cleveland way before a lot of our time,
Jim
who
Brown.
some would say is arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest running
Jim
back.
Brown. Yeah,
Jim Brown.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the older Cleveland Browns, I take nothing away from them.
I
The
thought you were
Newark-
going to say Vinny Testaverde or something, but yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Who is a New Jersey boy?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. He was the
Yes.
gentleman I'm thinking of is his name's Vinny, but he's Vinny Churchill from the Detroit Lions. Sorry,
Okay.
wrong name.
Oh, you're good. But here's my thing, though. I'll preface it this way: the modern Cleveland Browns,
Yes.
the ones that we've seen since '99,
99.
to me, have been the bottom of the AFC since '99. Yes, they've had a few spurts, a few moments here and there. You know, they thought, okay, we're going to finally this will be the year. I mean, let's be honest. We don't have to go through every quarterback they've had, but this team has had Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, Johnny Field Gold, as Scott Wetzel on his former show on Mad Dog Radio called him, Johnny Field Gold, and I died laughing. I'm like, oh my god.
And I'm sorry,
Johnny
isn't
Field Gold.
Manziel now a backup for some CFL team right
Yeah.
now?
Correct.
Mhm.
Look at how this. Yes, you can say that over the years they've been building up for this, but let's be honest. Did anybody see this coming this year with this
Nope.
Browns team?
Not me, and I'm blind. I didn't see it coming anyways.
Well, not gonna touch that one.
Nyam, 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 nyam.
Yum, 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 yum,
Nobody thought Hunt would rejuvenate his career out there.
No.
Not even that. Who thought Odell Beckham was actually not going to be a drama queen for once?
John,
Oh, hold on.
He wasn't
He
that
will-
much of a drama queen.
John, you're in the fire already again. He had a lot of hate on him this year. So strike 3.
Did he wear my watch?
Yeah.
But this is my thing, though.
But
We don't need
You also
him.
you got to look at it too. They did a lot better when he wasn't on the team.
Yeah, I won't take that away from them. I will not take that away. But to me, if anybody other than Anthony, who is a diehard Cleveland Browns fan, saw this coming, then please call me and give me tomorrow's lottery numbers.
Let alone, I'll say this: Anthony had multiple opportunities to bet on Cleveland this year, and he didn't take not one single bet.
But he did take one.
Yeah, he did take one.
He
Yeah,
did.
And
the
he-
big one.
He took the big one and he won.
Yeah, I may know one or two things about taking a big bet and winning, but I'll move on.
Yeah.
Did his shipment come in from that big bet?
Not the meat.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Everything else came in but the meat.
Was it from Arby's?
Right.
Moving on.
Well,
On
quick-
that note,
quick note though. Joe Loban, Joe from North Carolina, says in Discord, John, for you, tomorrow's numbers are your sister's ass.
I knew it was coming.
Size. Size, he said. Sorry, your sister's ass size.
Ooh.
A little extra added in there for you.
moving on from that, we have a big game coming up this weekend. Some would say it's probably one of the most intriguing Super Bowls in recent memory. I don't think I'm far off from saying that.
No,
It's
Chris,
a
talking about it.
history game.
No, folks,
And
it's
I
not be
will-
on the History Channel.
And I will get into that once we get into the conversation of why
yeah.
I say a history game.
Absolutely. Yes, folks, just in case you've been living under a rock this whole year and have no idea what we're talking about, the Super Bowl this Sunday will feature, like we said at the top of the show, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of them I figured was going to make it. Kansas City, to me, they're a young team. They haven't even hit their prime yet. Their first hit in their prime. Tampa Bay, on the other hand, gambled on getting guys like Brady and Gronk and Leonard Fournette and a few others, and look at where they are.
Yep.
So let's start off this conversation. Let's talk about Kansas City. First question out of the anybody shocked that they're back in the Super Bowl?
No.
No.
Would you have been surprised if there was another team from the AFC in the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay, real simple answers. That's what I like.
Way they're
Seriously.
playing, yeah, serious.
As much as I love my New England Patriots, if Kansas City did not pull it out, I would have been shocked.
I mean, let's be honest. Look at how this team was built. We were talking about this before when we talked about New England. This team was built from the draft to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes was a first-round pick. I think he was picked 10
Number 10. Yes.
in the 2017 draft.
Correct.
Came out of Texas Tech. Nobody knew of him. Travis Kelce, yeah, he was okay early on. He's really coming into his own.
I'll make the argument, John, that he was coming into his own when Alex Smith was their quarterback.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, I get the fact that a lot of people are going to say the pieces were there and that it was Patrick Mahomes to kind of get them to that point. But just look-
Tyreek Hill drafted by Kansas City.
Mhm.
You knew right there that was a fast, speedy receiver because that dude can go.
But also look at the running back they just took. Who it's the running back I think they took in this year's draft.
Yes.
Who has speed.
Mhm.
This team the big thing with this team, not only are they young, like we said before, but they have speed. And if you have a defense that can hold this team, I'll say this right now. One of the things, if I'm Tampa Bay, is you got to try to stop this offense. And guys, going to get to all you guys in 1 second, but we are now being joined by our guests.
Nice.
I will bring him in, and we will get this rolling. Making his appearance on the Our Nation's Sports Show. Yes, folks, we had him on our football preview show back in August. We figured why not have him on again, and that's Lance Medow. Lance, how you doing? How you been?
I'm doing very well, guys. Thanks for having me back on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. But well, let's get your take on this with Pittsburgh. We were talking about this in hour number one. You put the blame on them on one specific entity, or is it the entire team?
We're talking about the Steelers, right?
The Steelers,
Correct.
yes.
Yes.
Well, I think that the offensive play calling is one contributing factor. I was very frustrated watching the Steelers all season. I expected them to make a deep postseason run, but their inability to run the football pretty much shot themselves in the foot. It was, I don't know, just in terms of out of frustration, but the fact that you have the personnel up front on the offensive line, and you certainly have the runners because James Conner was back late in the season, and to not want to run the ball, especially in the red zone, to me falls on the play calling entity. I think that's a huge part of it. I do think there were points in the season where the offensive line could have played better, but I'll go back to that Bengals game, guys. If you recall the Monday night game,
Yes.
they were running the ball very effectively. If you go back and you watch that game, and that was a game that James Conner didn't play, and turnovers just came back to haunt them because when you have Ben Roethlisberger throw the ball 40 some odd times, in some games 50 some odd times, guys, I don't care whether you have a polished veteran or an unproven rookie, you're going to continue to put the ball in harm's way eventually with that high volume of throws. So I think it was clearly the execution. It goes without saying, but I also put a lot on the play calling. I expected more balance out of the Steelers offense this season. And for some reason, they just completely went off the deep end and said, you know what, the hell with that.
Right, because during the Washington game, they were throwing the ball constantly in the fourth quarter, and I'm sitting there thinking, like I said at the top of the show today, I'm like, what are you doing? You know, you're in the fourth quarter, you're up by 14 plus, and you keep throwing the ball. You got to have, like you said, Lance, you got to have a balanced attack to win these games, and their play calling was ultimately, like you said, their downfall.
Completely with you, Stephen. And I think you brought up an excellent point. I mean, you go back to that Washington game, and that was a game that was relatively tight. It wasn't as if they were trailing by double digits for the majority of the game, and even other games I'll point to. You know, it's one thing, if you look at football from a big picture perspective, guys, you're trailing by 15. I get it. You're in the third quarter. You don't have the luxury to run the football, right? You got to start throwing the ball because you're limited in terms of your at-bats, as I like to call it, your possessions. But the Steelers were not playing from behind more often than not in every single game, or even when they were trailing, you never got the feel as if they were in a position where, okay, they've got to be lopsided in terms of their play calling. To me, it was just, hey, we feel we put the ball in Big Ben's hands, we're going to have more success. And while, yeah, you can argue that you like your chances with a veteran quarterback, with the amount of drops that receiving core had, you would think at some point you say to yourself, okay, we're making it too easy on the opposition. Let's pound the ball. Let's try to set the tone on the ground. And even if we're picking up 2 to 3 yards per carry, I'd rather have that than go for the home run and wind up facing a 3rd and 15, which unfortunately was more often than not for the Steelers.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Carl?
I'm sorry. Lance, right before you came on, we were saying how we weren't shocked that Kansas City's back in the position they are. How did you feel about Kansas City at the beginning of the season?
Well, I felt good about the Chiefs, mainly because if we turn the clock back, as you just alluded to, Carl, you're talking about an unconventional offseason where you had virtual meetings, and any team that had a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, a lot of new personnel, you didn't have any on-field work. Well, Kansas City had that advantage over everybody else. Why? Because they were bringing back 20 of their 22 starters, which in today's NFL is quite ridiculous. So that they had working in their favor. You didn't lose any of the coordinators because Eric Bieniemy did not get a new gig and Steve Spagnuolo returned. So I felt very good about the Chiefs. I felt that they were going to be the team to beat just based on the landscape of the NFL. You weren't going to find another team that I felt was as well positioned as the Chiefs because of all of the returning coaches and personnel. So I'm not surprised at all, to answer your question, that they're back here in the Super Bowl. I think when you look at the makeup of this season, you would expect the defending Super Bowl champs maintaining continuity to have a humongous advantage over the rest of the league, and that proved to be the case.
Kind of piggybacking off of that for a second, you brought up Eric Bieniemy. Are you surprised that he did not get hired, either in the offseason or any such like that?
Well, I'm surprised that he didn't maybe make it as far into the interview process for a few teams. I would say that, John. But when you look at the fact that, and I brought this up on multiple shows, and I'm curious of even your perspective, guys, as individuals that follow sports very closely. Whenever we talk about the Chiefs and the aggressive play calling, look at the Cleveland Browns game, okay, in the divisional round when he had Chad Henne throw the pass to Tyreek Hill. What was the conversation after the game? It was Andy Reid. He's got a big pair of you-know-what, okay? It was Andy Reid is so clever. Andy Reid is so creative. When did the narrative ever include, boy, what a great job by Eric Bieniemy? What are they doing in that offensive film room? It's amazing what Bieniemy is bringing to the table. And listen, in an ideal world, coaches, owners, executives shouldn't be hired based on what the headlines are in the newspapers. But guys, let's not be naive. Those narratives do help. And that's why you see an assistant maybe at the beginning of the season, you never expected them to have a legitimate shot to get a head coaching gig. And all of a sudden, they're a hot commodity. Why? Because people have been talking about them all season. People have been writing about them all season. I don't feel Eric Bieniemy is at the forefront in the conversation when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's not to say that he's not capable of being a head coach. I just think until he gets out of the shadow of Andy Reid, and I don't think Andy Reid's doing this to him on purpose. It's just we tend to give the credit when anything goes right on offense to Andy Reid. Until that changes, I think that hurts Eric Bieniemy.
Exactly. Hijacker, I know you said you have a question from our Discord server.
Yeah. How you doing, Lance? I got two questions for you. I got one from Discord, and then I got one myself that's going to kind of go off to the side a little bit in football. But first, we'll go to Joe in North Carolina. He's asking to you, Lance, how does history view Andy Reid if he fails? Is he still a Hall of Fame-worthy coach?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, personally, I think Andy Reid is going to be a Hall of Fame coach, regardless of whether or not he wins or loses this game. And see, my viewpoint, guys, on football is very different than other sports. You ask me about basketball. Basketball is not just about getting there. It's about winning. Why? Because star players have far more influence on the outcome of championship series, I would argue, than in football. You're the quarterback. You're the most important position, okay? Don't get me wrong. But Mahomes is not going out there and playing defense. He's not responsible for slowing down Tom Brady. That's the Chiefs' defense, and vice versa. So I look at it the same thing with a head coach. You get there to the Super Bowl, you make the playoffs consistently like Andy Reid has done in a league defined by competitive balance, by parity, whatever term you want to utilize in the salary cap era. It's so hard to maintain consistency in this league. What Reid has been able to do in Philadelphia, as well as Kansas City, to me, he's solidified his legacy. You're talking about an Eagles coach that went to 4 straight conference championship games. And this is in the salary cap era, guys. Remember that. And now you're talking about, since he's gone into Kansas City, yeah, they haven't made the Super Bowl every year. They haven't made the conference championship game every year, but they've now done it 3 straight years. They're going to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. And he also, remember, had a huge influence in the Chiefs taking a flyer on Patrick Mahomes and drafting him. So between the personnel decisions, the play calling, the consistency of preparing teams and getting them to the playoffs, what else does this guy have to prove to warrant Hall of Fame status? It doesn't, in my mind, impact him at all if he loses.
Gotcha. And then my personal question, as everybody here on the show knows, I used to be a diehard Raiders fan. The team left me twice. I'm only 10 minutes from the Oakland Coliseum. Been a season ticket holder since '95 until they left. what do you think about Gruden's return? When Del Rio was there, I was a big fan. I loved Gruden 20 years ago when Al Davis originally brought him in. It's good to see him back, but I just don't think he has it. 4-12, 7-9, 8-8. Yes, we're still early in his return, but what is your thoughts on him coming back? Did you think Del Rio could have really continued taking this team up, even though Carr got hurt and they kind of sputtered out of control that year after he was injured? But what is your thoughts with Gruden and the Raiders right now?
Well, first of all, I'm with you. I really like the job Jack Del Rio did when he was with the Raiders. I actually don't think he's received enough credit. Look at what he's doing with the Washington defense this past season. He's a good coach, okay? He knows the fundamentals. He knows how to put players in the right position. And I think he also has the qualities of being that CEO type of guy where he can command the team, he can command the room. And you're right, it's unfortunate that the injuries, I think, is what overshadowed Jack Del Rio's potential of having even more success, because that one year, remember, they look like they're a juggernaut in the AFC. Unfortunately, Carr suffers the ankle injury, and we know the rest is history. So I'm with you there. I like the job Del Rio did, but of course, in the NFL, it's all about being itchy for results, and they made a change. Now, Gruden, I don't doubt his ability to formulate offenses that have success. I think Carr's done a nice job statistically under him, whether it be completion percentage. I mean, I thought Carr played a solid season. Here's my issue with Gruden. I don't think he's caught up in the times in terms of overall making decisions within game flow. That's what I have been a little bit frustrated with, just as somebody who observes the games. Case in point, guys, you go back to the Dolphins game late in the season. It was a must-win situation. Now, I know that we could go back and forth with this. I'm a believer. You take the touchdown when you could get the touchdown. You don't worry about the clock, okay? I want the opposition to go the length of the field. I don't want to make it easy for them to have to just settle for a field goal to tie the game or win the game. So if you remember, they overthought that. And you had Josh Jacobs try to tiptoe and slow himself down. So, those situations, the Chargers game was another one which came down to the wire. They went to overtime. Herbert, remember the QB sneak, got into the end zone. I thought his game management. Now, is this a reflection of not being caught up on the times, being old school, or, not being open to new ideas? I don't know. We still have a small sample size in terms of his second stint. But I would say that's the biggest criticism, Mike. If you were to ask me about Gruden right now, then as far as an X's and O's standpoint, because I've seen potential out of this Raiders offense. I love what Darren Waller's been doing. I think Jacobs is a great weapon at the running back position. I think they have the pieces. They just need to shore up the end of game decisions, and that to me falls on the head coach.
So just like me, you do see a little Al Davis and John Gruden.
Oh, I think that's fair. Absolutely. And if you're talking about little Al Davis, I don't want to put words in your mouth, or you talk about the stubbornness quality.
How he wants to bring 70s football into the 2000s before he unfortunately passed away is what I mean. He wants to bring old school, bring it to you, but that's not today's game.
I think that's a very good synopsis and great analysis on your part. I would agree with you. I think that pretty much sums up the Raiders, where they've got the pieces, they've got the weaponry, they've got the potential, but the philosophy to me seems to be the missing link right now. And it's going to be interesting right now. On a quick side note, Gruden has now shaken up his staff, as you can attest to. He's going to bring in now Gus Bradley as his defensive coordinator, who I thought did a nice job with the Chargers, and he was the previous head coach with Jacksonville. Let's see now if maybe some new voices steers Gruden to what we were just talking about in a different direction. Sometimes you need a new assistant to come in and change your thinking. Maybe that does it. If that doesn't do it, then once again, I think that points the fingers back at the head coach.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Steven?
Yes. To transition into the other team that's in the Super Bowl this year, Tampa Bay. I remember when you were on the show with us back in August talking about previewing the season, you were not so hot on Tampa Bay at the beginning of the season, because to start the season, because they were the quote unquote new hottest team and people were high on them. You didn't think they would make a run, and it looked like they weren't, because at the first start of the season, they were really shaky. That game against New Orleans, and then the games that they ended up losing on and off during the season against Kansas City, against Green Bay, all these, different, teams. and San Francisco and all this other stuff. And Tom Brady had a rough year at times throwing that football. And he did not look good. He looked old at times, but they finally have catched a streak. And what are your thoughts on Tampa Bay's season this year?
Well, I think the Bucks is the prime example of the type of team that needed time to get on the same page. And they were able to overcome some of those hurdles that you just outlined. My concern about Tampa Bay going into the season was you were bringing in a new quarterback, and he had to get used to the new personnel around him. And then on top of that, guys, if you recall, they had a number of injuries that they were dealing with too, guys right in and out of the lineup. So I think that's why Tampa Bay didn't click until the latter portion of the second half of the season. And I would argue they were playing their best football in the last 4 games of the season. Now, I think part of that was a reflection of the caliber of the opposition. They had 2 games against Atlanta. They were playing Detroit. But to your point, yeah, they're the true example of a team that gelled little by little. As far as my outlook of the team now, my concern with Tampa Bay, and I've said this every week of the postseason, I have no issue with their offense. I think they're more than capable of hanging with everybody. I think that Brady's much more comfortable with everybody around him. I like that Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones are providing a nice 1-2 punch in terms of the ground game. I think they're also showing some consistency as receivers in the backfield. My concern is they're very opportunistic this postseason. And I was looking at the numbers. They've had 7 takeaways over the course of their 3 playoff games. 6 of those 7 takeaways, they had legitimate chances to score following the takeaway, because the takeaway that I'm not including in this mathematics exercise for you guys is the one that ended the Saints game, because there was no need for them to have to score. The game was over at that point.
Yes.
Of those 6 takeaways, they scored a touchdown on all 6 of those takeaways. That's an unreal rate if you look at NFL turnover rate and then being able to capitalize. On top of that, if you look at the field position as a result of the takeaways, it shortened the field for Tom Brady and company. Now, can Brady and company march down the field 75 to 80 yards, guys? Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to doubt that. But when you tell an offense that you don't have to do that consistently during the course of a game, that's a little bit different than having to put together 4 or 5 75, 80-yard drives. The Bucs have not been put in a position when they've had to do that. So my concern is, what happens if the takeaways are not there on Sunday? And the Chiefs are not the type of team that coughs up the football. What is the true colors of this Tampa Bay offense? That's what I have yet to see from this group. They're able to score, but let's not forget the fact they're scoring a lot of their points off of takeaways in the postseason. What happens if you have to play a clean game? That I have yet to see.
Right. And, you talk about that. I'll bring this up because I went on a rant towards the beginning of this hour.
Yeah, we can call it that.
The Green Bay game. And I know on Mad Dog Radio the next day, Adam Shine and Chris Russo and all these different guys were just talking, and JC the Brick talked about on his show that very night on Sunday. What in the hell is Green Bay doing not going for it on 4th and goal from the 8-yard line? They were down by 8, 31-23, with 2 minutes plus change left to go in the game. If they scored the touchdown and they missed a 2-point conversion, they still have all of their 3 timeouts plus the 2-minute warning. And it was, to me, in a lot of people's eyes, it was bad coaching by Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers not calling the audible because his coach was like, no, we're going to kick in it. Aaron Rodgers should have went to him and said, screw you, I'm Aaron effing Rodgers, and we're going for it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I was still scratching my head hours after that game. Here's the best way that I could put that situation in perspective, Stephen, that you just mentioned. Chad Henne had more of an opportunity to help the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Cleveland Browns than Aaron Rodgers did to help the Green Bay Packers win a playoff game. Come on. I mean,
and they had 3 turnovers against Tom Brady. And you mean to tell me you couldn't capitalize but 1 touchdown? Come on.
Well, and that's the difference. See, that's why when you asked me about my outlook of the Bucs, I can't overlook the fact that they've capitalized off of other teams' mistakes. Whereas you're right, Green Bay, you have Tom Brady throw 3 interceptions. How many games does Tom Brady throw 3 interceptions and you can't capitalize? He's laying out the red carpet in a game where, by the way, the Packers turned the ball over 2 times. Green Bay guys coming into that game had the least amount of turnovers the entire season, 11. They played unreal football. And then this is the postseason for you, right? It's unpredictable. So all of the things were leaning towards Green Bay's way. You have a sloppy game, but Tampa Bay coughs up the ball. Yeah, Green Bay had every which opportunity. But here's the other thing that not enough people are talking about, by the way. It's not so much that Matt LaFleur decided to take the 3 points. I'm stunned. If you go back to the 2 plays prior to that, Aaron Rodgers, to me, had an opportunity to run not once, but twice.
Yes.
He had an alley, and he decided not to take that. So as much as I'm going to be critical, in fairness, of Matt LaFleur, I think a lot of people have to also be a little bit critical of Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
A seasoned quarterback, for not seeing that alley and not trying to take advantage.
Right, because on the third down play, he's going to run and he said he has the alley to run, and he hesitates and throws the ball incomplete. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
And he, more often than not, we've seen Rodgers. Listen, is Rodgers Mahomes? Is he Lamar Jackson? No. But you're going to tell me Rodgers can't run the 5 to 7 yards that he needed to get to at worst, guys, put him at the 1 yard line. And then you wonder, does LaFleur's philosophy or outlook change when he can maybe just go for a quarterback sneak under those circumstances?
Mm-hmm.
Hijacker, you said we have a Discord exclusive, Discord server question.
Yeah, Lance, we got a question from Discord here for you. It comes from Stephen PA. He says, Lance, do you believe now is the time for the Bucs to unleash hell with Leonard Fournette?
Well, I think that's going to be a critical part of their game plan. I think if you play Kansas City, number one, you want to wear down their defense and you want to keep Mahomes on the sideline. So how do you do that? You do that by leaning on your run game. But I want to add a quick caveat to that, because to me, Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, as I was talking about earlier, guys, are so effective as receivers out of the backfield, even though they have had the case of the dropsies as of late. To me, an extension of the run game is dumping it off to your running back. So when I say a heavy dose of Leonard Fournette, it doesn't have to be Leonard Fournette handing him the ball 18 times. It could be Leonard Fournette runs it 13 and then you target him 5 or 6 times. But I agree with the sentiments of the question where, yeah, I do think this is a game where I would want to lean on Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. It just doesn't have to come on the ground. It should be a mix of short game through the air as well as the ground attack. And that, to me, is the way that you beat Kansas City. You got to win the battle in the trenches. Mm-hmm. If you keep Tom Brady clean, that's going to put more pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Now, the Chiefs could still win, even if Brady has a clean game. But why has Tampa Bay been winning during the course of the postseason? We talked about, guys, the takeaways and how opportunistic they've been. The other facet of why they've consistently been winning is they dominated the trenches against Drew Brees and the Saints. Drew Brees had no time, okay? He was rattled. That's why he threw turnovers. And then Aaron Rodgers. What happened, and this is what I love about the NFL, quick side note, you go from seeing the Packers absolutely dominate the Rams, the number one scoring defense in the NFL. The Rams had the most sacks in the NFL this season. Aaron Rodgers is clean. He wasn't touched. He had 1 quarterback hit on Aaron Rodgers, no sacks. Then you flip the script forward 1 week. He goes up against the Bucs. He gets sacked 5 times. He gets hit multiple times. How the hell does that happen? Well, the bottom line is the Bucs dominated in the trenches, and the Rams couldn't do any of that. Aaron Donald was banged up. So my point is, if Tampa Bay can get to Mahomes a little bit, or vice versa, Kansas City gets to Brady, that to me is going to be a significant storyline in this game, because Mahomes and the Chiefs offense are more than capable of making up for the sacks. Brady and the Bucs offense, I'm not as confident. So that's where, to me, the difference in this game could lie.
Sticking with the Super Bowl, it's been talked a lot now that, if Brady wins, it'll be the first time he wins under a new head coach. If that were to happen and Monday morning we hear Tom Brady wins another Super Bowl, does that diminish what happened in New England at all? Well, let me rephrase it. Does that diminish Belichick at all?
No, not at all. I mean, it goes back to, John, what I was talking about with Andy Reid. Belichick has been so consistent. And remember, Belichick also, people don't give him enough credit for what he did in Cleveland, okay? Well before he became the Patriots head coach. If you go back and you look at what he did with the Browns, that was the last time that they actually had some respectable football in Cleveland until Kevin Stefanski came along, which has been quite some
Yes.
time. So Belichick, and then also you look at what Belichick did as the Giants defensive coordinator. I think he's made a name for himself even before New England, John, that if Brady goes on to win elsewhere, I don't look at it as, oh my God, this diminishes Belichick. On top of that, okay, let me throw on a few more layers. When Brady goes down in 08, he has to turn to Matt Castle. They win 11 games. So they clearly were strategizing correctly then. Granted, I know New England didn't make the playoffs, but let's face it, more often than not, your team wins 11 games, you're going to the playoffs. And then on top of that, when Brady gets suspended for 4 games a few seasons ago, he turns to Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett in the first 4 games, and they go 3-1. So Belichick has proven that maybe over the course of a 16-game season consistently, he hasn't won with a quarterback not named Brady, which of course we saw this year, the struggles, but he's shown flashes where they could strategize and they could do things to make up for not having Tom Brady. So no, I don't think it at all changes the conversation whatsoever. It clearly elevates Brady, John, which I know wasn't your question, but for Belichick, I don't think Belichick is harmed in any way. No.
All right, I want to take a quick side step away from the Super Bowl. I want to talk about the 2 New York teams for a second. Quickly with the Jets, we had Danielle McCartan on. We did an interview on Monday, and we asked her, I want to ask you as well, does Deshaun Watson become a Jet?
Well, if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm not trading Deshaun Watson. And I think it's absolutely crazy and nuts that the Houston Texans would even consider trading Deshaun Watson. Now, that may not be the reality of the circumstances, but when you find a franchise quarterback or somebody that's capable, let me phrase it this way, of being your quarterback for well over a decade, your answer can't be, and I'm speaking more from a fan perspective, your answer can't be, well, we'll get a few high draft picks and we'll take another quarterback. Can you tell me for a fact that that player is going to become Deshaun Watson in 3 to 4 years?
No.
Unless you have a crystal ball, you can't. So if I'm the Texans, you got a new head coach, you got a new GM. Those 2 guys, the last time I checked, were not anywhere near Deshaun Watson over the last few years. He has no relationship with either one of them. So if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm saying to myself, let me see what David Culley and Nick Caserio can do. Let me get to know them. Let me see what their philosophy is. Regardless of what went on with Bill O'Brien previously and anybody else who worked for the Houston Texans organization. So if I'm Houston, I'm not getting rid of him. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the reality. As far as the Jets' chances, they would have to blow away the Houston Texans, John, in order for the Jets to realistically get Deshaun Watson. And here's another thing as to why I don't think the Jets would get Deshaun Watson. I think Robert Saleh, who came over from the San Francisco 49ers, their defensive coordinator, I think he comes from the philosophy of, I've been with San Francisco over the last few years. We went to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. We had chances to win football games with Nick Mullins and Beathard, okay? Now, does that happen everywhere you go? No. My point is, I think he's a believer in, we play fundamentally sound defense. We keep offenses low scoring that we're playing. We can win football games with Sam Darnold. If we continue to surround him with talent, we don't have to be the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. We could be a very good defensive-minded team, and we could be similar to San Francisco, where we may not win by blowouts, we may not win pretty, but we'll put our position in to win games. And that's why I don't think he's a believer in let's give up all these assets for a star quarterback.
Absolutely. Carl, do you have any final questions?
I have 2 questions for you, Lance. And the one, it's probably going to, I would say, shock a lot of people with my question is, but first off, what team this year do you think was a sleeper, known as they were a bust from the beginning? And my second question is, how did you feel about the way the Browns have played all season up until the playoffs?
I think Kevin Stefanski has done a fantastic job just changing the philosophy of what's going on in the locker room and also how he's constructed the roster as well as the offense. I've been knowing of Kevin Stefanski going back to when he was in the Ivy League. So, I mean, this guy has paid his dues. He was a longtime assistant with the Minnesota Vikings. I really like the job that he and Andrew Berry, the new general manager, have done. Now, it's 1 year, Carl. So we're not throwing a parade in Cleveland, okay? We've got to have perspective here because we've seen other coaches, right? They come in year one, impressive, and then all of a sudden it's hard to duplicate. But I like how he has constructed the offense. I think he's done a really good job molding Baker Mayfield. Remember, Baker had a very rough season last year, and part of why Baker struggled was, yes, the offensive line was a mess, but I also think his fundamentals got out of whack. And I think Kevin Stefanski and company, I think, got him to a point where he could be more comfortable playing that position. So I really like what he's instilled and what he's implemented. But the key for him now is going to be, how do we maintain that consistency? That's going to be the next test. They've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They're going to have to make tough decisions when they have to give out contracts to some of these young players. But all in all, I think if you're a Browns fan, you should be optimistic, because I don't think they won by fluky plays. I don't think they won by luck. I think when you look at some of the games they won this year, they were doing things consistently. And that's what I always look for in a team. Did you win with trickery? Did you win because you were so opportunistic with the takeaways that we were talking about with Tampa Bay? Or did you do the fundamentally sound things? I think Cleveland's more of the latter than the former. So that's why I think they're in position to at least build off of what they constructed this season. As far as sleeper team, very interesting question, Carl. I mean, I haven't necessarily given it a great deal of thought. One team that comes to mind that I personally was high on, I know a lot of other people weren't, so I do think they fall under the sleeper umbrella. I loved what the Indianapolis Colts did this year. I don't think a lot of people felt that, Phillip Rivers is going to come in. He's old. He's worn out. He hasn't made good decisions with the Chargers. I've been arguing all these years, well, give him an offensive line, give him a consistent run game, and see what a veteran like him could do. I thought they've got a lot of good defensive personnel. Matt Eberflus, we were talking earlier about Eric Bieniemy. I'm surprised Eberflus didn't get a head coaching gig. I think he's done a really good job with that Indianapolis defense over the last few seasons. So I thought the Colts, everybody said the Texans were the team to beat. Tennessee is going to duplicate. Nobody was talking about Indianapolis. And I said, guys, don't overlook the Colts. You've got a good structure there with Frank Reich. You've got a good group of running backs with an offensive line surrounding Phillip Rivers. They've got an underrated defense. And, they did a really nice job playing consistent football. And it wasn't pretty all season. They had to overcome some early issues here or there. But I thought Indianapolis did fall under that umbrella, and I think they met and exceeded expectations, if you were to ask me.
Absolutely. Hijacker, I think we have 2 questions from Discord.
Yeah, Lance, we have one of our show elite here. Marks from New Mexico has a couple questions for you. I'll read them together for you. What's one team that made the playoffs that will miss the playoffs next year? And what's one team that missed the playoffs this year that will make it next year?
One of my favorite questions. It's one of my favorite statistics that I throw out. No, it's a great question, by the way, because I bring this stat up all the time. I don't think enough individuals realize. Do you know, guys, there's an average of about 5 new teams that make the playoffs every single year that have missed the playoffs the previous year. There were, I believe, 7 new postseason teams in the mix this year. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, they added 2 more playoff spots. But you know what? That's actually been the average. We've seen years. I went back to when the Patriots began their dynasty. There's been years, 7 new playoff teams, 8 new playoff teams. I mean, we've seen it. So the turnover rate in the NFL is quite ridiculous. I'm just going to bring up the postseason chart. So just bear with me, only because I like to visually look, just so that I don't overlook a team or I give a team the benefit of the doubt to see who potentially could wind up missing the playoffs. Let's start with the AFC. Me. Yes, visual aids. It always helps.
Yes.
Yes, I think we could all relate from that standpoint. I would say in the AFC, the team that I would be concerned about is Tennessee. And the reason why I'm concerned about Tennessee is I think they're going to have some really tough salary cap decisions that they're going to have to make. Remember, they locked up Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, okay? So now you can't retain the defensive back that you would hope. You can't retain the offensive lineman. They lost some personnel this year. Logan Ryan, for example, was a guy that didn't return, who I thought was a valuable component of their defense. He went over to the Giants, a team I cover very closely, and he proved to be an excellent addition to the back end of their defense. I'm a little bit worried that the Titans are going to lose even more personnel this year, which is going to put pressure on their front office to draft well. And I'm not saying that they're not capable, but once again, Tennessee's a team. It's not about the coaches, because I think Mike Vrabel's done a really good job. But remember, Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, is now in Atlanta. So you're promoted from within. Okay, that's great from a continuity standpoint. But Arthur Smith's done a really good job. Arthur Smith's not going to be on the sideline anymore holding anybody's hand. What happens? Tennessee, I think, is a strong candidate to miss the playoffs next year after making it this year. Now, we go over to the NFC. The NFC, if there was a team that would come to mind, well, the Rams would have been maybe the first one, but now that they made the trade for Matthew Stafford, I feel good. And that defense is very strong. So I'm not overly concerned about that group. The NFC East is probably where I should go, because one of my other favorite stats, guys, is the fact that nobody's won back-to-back NFC East titles since the Eagles won 4 in a row in the early 2000s. So just by default, I think Washington has a tough go of making the playoffs. But you know what? That's low-hanging fruit, okay? And we want to challenge everybody on this program, okay? So I'm not going to let myself out so easily, okay? So if there's a team that is going to miss out on the postseason next year, as I look over the list here, I'm going to really go out on a limb here, okay? And you, Carl, mentioned that the question that you were posing to me a few minutes ago was going to be a surprise. I'm going to say the Seattle Seahawks could very well miss the playoffs. Yeah.
Ooh,
And here's why.
I think.
It's similar to Tennessee. I think we're starting to see a transition with the Seahawks where you're losing personnel. They changed offensive coordinators. Remember, Brian Schottenheimer's not there anymore.
Mhm.
So, you're starting to see some concern. And look at the Seahawks offense, guys. Started off red hot, right? We were talking about Russell Wilson being an MVP.
Yes.
And then in the second half of the season, there were some individuals that were concerned about whether or not they would be able to survive and make the playoffs. And then that showed up, right? Look at what the Rams defense did to Russell Wilson and company. Jared Goff was not healthy. They lose John Wolford at the beginning of the game, and the Rams didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
So you look at Seattle's defense, I also thought started off sluggish. They lost a lot of guys due to injury. Then they came back. They were very much Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Their running backs in and out of the lineup. The offensive line, I don't think really has ever been a true strength of that team during Russell Wilson's tenure. You look, he's been sacked more so than most quarterbacks. So if you want a curveball here, and it's early, okay? I'm going to date myself. It's February 4th, 2021. So if you bring this back out of the archives, okay, a year from now, that's fine, okay? I'll sip on my own medication, guys, okay? But you know what? It's time to think outside the box. I'm going to go with Seattle in the NFC.
You might not be wrong, Lance. I mean, wow. I mean,
Oof.
oof. I have a two-part
That's
question.
good. I'm glad that I got you guys breathing a little bit harder. That was my goal.
I have a two-part question for you, because you brought up during the beginning of this interview that Pittsburgh was a huge disappointment with the way they finished this season. Who for you that you thought was also going to make a playoff run, that was going to make a deep playoff run that didn't do it? And then my second question is, what was your favorite game of the year this year?
Wow, favorite game of the year. Ooh,
Mm-mm.
that's an interesting one. Tampa Bay, Kansas City, I thought, because it's now the rematch in the Super Bowl, the Bucs made the game interesting late after Kansas City jumped out to a 17-0 lead. So, that was a game I was at least looking forward to on paper because of the marquee matchup of the quarterbacks and obviously both teams. So, that would be maybe one candidate. I'm trying to think of what else was great. I did a lot of post-game shows after the Thursday night games, which I was extremely disappointed with. And the Monday night games weren't that much better. But there was one Monday night game, I feel, that came down to the wire that is just maybe at the tip of my tongue, but I'm not recalling. Maybe we'll come back to that, and I'll have to look over the schedule of all the Monday night games. There was one game that I didn't anticipate that maybe it even scraping the surface of perhaps an overtime affair and then turned out to be an overtime affair that I thought was a very entertaining game. But the matchup is not coming to my mind. As far as the first question about which team that I expected to make a deep postseason run and then it never came to fruition, I would point to the Arizona Cardinals. I was very high on the Arizona Cardinals, and I picked them to go to the playoffs. I thought we could have seen 3 teams from the NFC West. And, I mean, we were close, guys. Listen, the Cardinals were in a position to make the playoffs the final week. So it wasn't that far-fetched. And they were playing good football at stretches. But then, when they really needed to play their best, it seemed to have just fallen apart. So Arizona, I thought overall was a disappointment. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, Cliff Kingsbury's second year, Kyler Murray's second year, considering where they finished in year one, the fact that they finished 8-8, maybe somewhat a step in the right direction. But that team was in a position to finish over 500. It wasn't as if they started 0-5 and made this dramatic comeback. So the Cardinals is a team that absolutely comes to mind that I had higher hopes, and they did not carry that out into the postseason. If you're asking me, though, for a team that actually made the playoffs and didn't perhaps come through, I would probably point to the Green Bay Packers not making the Super Bowl, because I think with the way they were playing all season and the position they were in the NFC Championship game, of course, that I thought they had all the ingredients to get into the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I think the fact that now they've made back-to-back NFC Championship games, now granted, they were beat up by San Francisco, so they didn't really have a legitimate chance to win that game last year. But this year, I don't think you could have asked for a better opportunity. Brady turns the ball over 3 times. You're more than capable of running the football effectively. You've got Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, I think Green Bay is the team probably that made the playoffs. Disappointment that they didn't make the Super Bowl.
Yes.
It's funny you bring up Green Bay because, as mentioned before, Steven had a rant on them, and I sort of had a quasi-rant on them when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Am I off by saying that Aaron Rodgers is no better than Tony Romo? In the sense that Aaron Rodgers in the regular season is phenomenal. In the postseason, he becomes very not him, almost.
See, I'm very high on Tony Romo. I am a Romo defender. So I look at Romo in a probably stronger light than the 5 of you, or the 4 of you, excuse me. I'm going to take a guess. So, when you throw out Tony Romo, I don't think that's an insult. I think Romo had a heck of a career, and I think he's one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated quarterback in NFL history. I'll go so far to say that. And the reason being, and John, I'll get back to your question. I'm not trying to avoid it.
No,
I mean, hell, I picked the Seahawks missing the playoffs, guys. I'm not dancing around anything. Romo, I would argue, if he doesn't make some of the plays that he made during the course of his career late in seasons, the Cowboys don't even have an opportunity to play a meaningful game in Week 17 or get a taste of the playoffs. There was a game against Washington one season where, if you remember, it was the year he hurt his back, and then Kyle Orton started against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game the following week.
Yep.
If you remember, guys, they were trailing in that game. He throws it into the flat to DeMarco Murray. Murray runs in for the late go-ahead touchdown. The Cowboys lose that game. There is no meaningful game in Week 17. Nobody talks about that. That's all Romo. Romo is also the quarterback that helped position the Cowboys into other do-or-die games, I would argue, in Week 17. There was a game against the Denver Broncos, if you recall. I think
the high-scoring game with Peyton.
The high-scoring game, Steven. Remember that game where they went into the 50s? The Dallas defense did nothing.
55-50, right? Something like that.
Exactly. Now, Romo threw an interception late. Okay, I figured maybe one of you were going to bring that up. I remember. Okay, I'm not shying away from that. But once again, if Romo doesn't do what he does offensively in that game, are they even in a position on the final drive to help themselves? Now, I can bore you to details with all those examples.
No. You're not wrong, because if he doesn't make some of the mistakes that he made, you can make the argument that they could have a chance to be in one of these big time games. I mean, look at the playoff game against Green Bay in 2014. The controversial no catch with Des Bryant. I mean, that was
perfect example.
That game.
And that was going to be my next one. That is
right.
A great example. Well, how about this? Not just the Des Bryant catch, no catch. You know what also happened in that game that people never bring up? DeMarco Murray, when the Cowboys are marching down the field, fumbles the ball. Green Bay takes over. If you go back, Steven, that was a huge turning point in that game.
Yes.
Nobody brings that up. Nobody talks about that. There's tons of other things other than the Des Bryant play that influenced the outcome of that game.
Yep.
So you could go back and forth a number of Tony Romo examples. So to bring it back full circle, I look at Romo as an underrated quarterback. Now, as far as the comparison of Aaron Rodgers to Tony Romo, that I think is going a little too far, John, okay? Because we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Let's take away team success or the lack thereof with Green Bay. You're talking about arguably the greatest quarterback in NFL history with touchdown to interception ratio. Nobody does a better job making decisions in the flow of a game, I would argue. I mean, you even put him up there with Tom Brady, then Aaron Rodgers. You go into every game with Aaron as your starting quarterback. How many times do you go in worried about, oh, this is going to be the game where Aaron throws 3 interceptions, or this is going to be the game where Aaron throws 2 interceptions? I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, how many games has Aaron Rodgers even had multi-interceptions? I'd say I probably need one hand to probably give you the answer, maybe an additional finger. So that alone puts him on a stratosphere with not many other quarterbacks. And Romo, remember, Romo had his fair share of issues with turnovers throughout the course of his career. Steven, we were just talking about that. So, I mean, that separates the two of them right there. And here's the other thing. And I may be in the minority of this. I sound like a broken record on every program that I host. I don't know about you guys. I hate quarterback records. Okay. We really need to stop talking about that.
You are correct.
Yep.
I can't stand it. I hate the fact that we assign a record to a quarterback. Once again, you want to talk about that for Jordan, LeBron? That's fine, guys, because those two guys had far more influence on defense and offense. But there's only so much, we were just talking about, that Romo could do. There's only so much that Rodgers could do when you have a Swiss cheese defense or your kicker misses a field goal.
Yep. Okay,
these guys are human at the end of the day. So
Right.
I want to stop the narrative and the conversation about, well, you know, this guy is 5-2 when he plays this guy. Well, when Brady goes out there and suits up as a safety in a corner, then let's talk about quarterbacks against quarterbacks and let's throw out records. But until that happens, I don't want to hear it.
And Lance, and I'll make the argument right now too. Talk about the Sunday Super Bowl. Honest to God, Patrick Mahomes has nothing to lose. What has this guy done in his 3 years as a starter? He's won an MVP, took his team to 3 AFC championship games. They already won a Super Bowl. He's the Super Bowl MVP. Hell of a quarterback, hell of a talent. He has nothing to lose. The kid's 25 years old, not even 26. I mean, and if he loses the Super Bowl, oh, well, he has a championship, because some quarterbacks like Dan Marino can't even say, Jim Kelly can't even say they don't have a Super Bowl, because Super Bowl or not, a great quarterback is a great quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
100%. And Rodgers is a great quarterback. I don't think any of us are going to question that, and any of us are going to debate that. Plus, you go back to, and this piggybacks right off of your point, Steven. Let's look at Aaron Rodgers this year, okay? What everybody's going to remember when we have this conversation 10 years ago, and I ask you, what happened in the 2020 season for the Green Bay Packers? Well, we're going to talk about maybe Aaron Rodgers winning MVP. We're going to talk about how they were the best team in the NFC record-wise, and they earned home field advantage.
Yep.
But how many people are going to bring up Matt LaFleur's decision to take the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands with him having a chance to maybe force overtime and tie that game? Nobody's going to talk about that. But Aaron gets the loss. And I'm not saying that Aaron played great, okay? Don't misinterpret my words. Aaron has a responsibility for why the Packers lost that game. That wasn't his best game. But my point is that context doesn't show up when we just give you Aaron Rodgers' record or the things that we talked about in great detail with Tony Romo. You have to remember that. That's the optics. That's the memory test. That's nowhere to be found when we just randomly throw out a record of a quarterback. So I would want more substantive conversation when we have this dialogue about where you put Aaron Rodgers or where you put Tony Romo. And I just don't want people turning to, well, this guy won this amount of games or this guy won this amount of playoff games. Well, talk to me about all the other things that the guy did to help his team keep its head above water to even discuss the playoffs or keep the playoffs within striking distance. That doesn't show up within a record.
Right.
Carl?
So, Lance, my question for you, as a New Yorker, I'm going to touch very tightly on this one, but what did you think of the way New England was positioned with players and everything this year?
You're talking about the structure of the roster for the
Yes,
Patriots?
sir.
Well, the first thing that hurt them and was just a smack in the face was all the quality players, Carl, that opted out. Nobody even talks about that. And once again, this is not an excuse, but New England, I think, was probably the hardest hit. If you were to ask me, if we go back and we look at all the players that opted out, I'd say New England lost probably the most quality talent. We're not just talking about the third offensive lineman or the third wide receiver. We're talking about starting legitimate defensive players, right? Hightower,
Yep.
Chung on defense. I mean, those are two guys that come off the top of my head. Cannon on the offensive line, if memory serves me correctly as well. I mean, those are three starters right there I just named, guys. So that was the first thing, Carl, that just hit them hard. And that put them in a very precarious spot because remember, by the time those guys opt out, and New England didn't have a lot of cap space to work with anyway. That's one of the reasons why they had to part ways with some talent. So that was damaging blow number one. I liked the move, and I thought it was a great bargain for what they brought in Cam for. I think most people and most teams would sign up for that, right? I mean, compared to what they were working with, right? Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer, none of those guys proved that they could be a starter for 16 games. Clearly, Bill Belichick and the New England staff wasn't even sold. That's why they made the late move for Cam. But you look at, this goes back to the conversations we had about Brady last season. What was Cam working with? Didn't have a whole lot of talent. Then Julian Edelman gets hurt, who's probably the most consistent weapon within the offensive personnel grouping. And while I think their defense was still solid, despite losing some of those guys, you got Stephon Gilmore, but then Gilmore you lose. He gets hurt late in the season. He was in and out of the lineup. So I guess circling back to your question, Carl, I don't know if I would blame the Patriots organization for being ill-prepared. I just think they got bit by the opt-out and they got bit by a season unlike anything else and tried to make the best of it. This is, though, a critical offseason. If there's any team you were to ask me that I'm monitoring very closely about how they're going to navigate the offseason, because this offseason, the Patriots have some moolah, okay? So you can't point to the lack of resources. The draft, that goes without saying, is going to be critical in trying to find the future quarterback. But I want to see them also bring in a veteran. And I've been throwing this out. I think Andy Dalton makes a lot of sense in New England with a young quarterback. I'd like to see some combination of that. And that, I think, is that going to hand them the NFC East title? No. But I think it elevates them. I think you could do a lot worse than Andy Dalton. And I think that was a great signing by the Cowboys, by the way, this year. And it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, given the unfortunate injury to Dak. So this is a huge offseason for the Patriots here.
Absolutely. Lance, one thing I want to get to is overall with the Super Bowl coming up, what's one key thing that people should look out for, in your opinion?
With respect to just the flow of the game, you're talking about?
The flow of the game, and like one thing that a fan, basically what should they be paying attention in this game?
Well, I think the trenches, which I alluded to earlier, John, I mean, that would be my first focus, because I do think if Kansas City can get the better of that Tampa Bay offensive line, and I'm not talking about sacks, I'm just saying if they could hit Brady, make him feel uncomfortable. I think we've seen, based on what the Giants did and what the Eagles did in the Super Bowl, and even if you go back to some of the teams, guys, earlier this season that played Tampa Bay, if you remember that Bears game, I think that was the Thursday night game, right? Yes. Chicago held Tampa Bay. I want to say the final score was 19-17 off the top of my head.
That is correct.
Okay? Well, there you go. Kudos to myself. It's amazing what I can remember. I have not lost my touch. So if they could get hits on Brady, that to me is going to be a huge storyline. And the Chiefs have the big boys to do that. The Chris Jones, the Passignos, the guys on the interior. So I would certainly look out for that. The reason why I'm not so worried about that on the flip side is San Francisco. I actually went back. I looked at the numbers. The Niners sacked Patrick Mahomes 4 times in last year's Super Bowl. And then the Chiefs wound up winning by 11. Right? San Francisco, for 3.5 quarters, they had the Chiefs exactly where they needed. And then Kansas City said, thank you very much. We'll take it from there. So that's the great magic of Patrick Mahomes. You think you get the better of him, and then blink of an eye, all of a sudden they make up for it. That's why I'm not too overly concerned about what happens in the trenches on the Kansas City side, even though the Chiefs' offensive line is a little bit banged up. I'm more looking at what the Chiefs' defense does against the Tampa Bay offensive line. That, to me, is something I think you have to watch the entire game. Then I think the facet for the Bucs on offense is, we were talking about the run game. I actually look at it as, who outside of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans can make plays? Because even if Antonio Brown doesn't play, he's not healthy. Notice Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson. If you look at the three playoff games, I should say, that the Bucs have played, one of those guys have flashed here or there, and I would say it came at a critical moment. Because of Kansas City's prolific scoring, you need all hands on deck, and you need somebody to make a play above the X's and O's that's not one of your usual suspects, for the lack of a better phrase. So that's why I'm saying somebody not named Mike Evans, not named Chris Godwin. Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller. I'll throw in Cameron Brate there. I mean, Brate's a solid player, but I think he falls under that umbrella. Ronald Jones, an explosive play, something that you're not expecting. Tampa Bay needs one or two of those plays, I think, to win this game, in addition to winning in the trenches. So those are the two items, John, to answer your question, that I'd be monitoring.
All right, Hijacker, I know we have one final question. I know what the question is, so let's go with this.
Oh,
No, it's not the famous one. It's another one.
Oh, come on. We have to ask that one.
This is quite the introduction if you're all chuckling before he even asks the question.
No, we got Joe in North Carolina on Discord wants to ask you, if you're up for a lighthearted question, what's more painful, being a Jets fan or eating glass?
oh.
Well, here's the thing. See, I'm not a Jets fan, so I can't speak from experience, guys, but I've heard from many Jets fans. I would say I'll lean towards eating glass, okay? And maybe that's the chicken answer. But, as somebody that loves sports, is passionate about sports, and understands the fandom lens, I think we often need perspective in this conversation. And there's far worse things in my mind that you could suffer, as opposed to watching your team have to win 2 games at the end of the season. I mean, my thoughts and prayers are with Jets fans that you didn't get the number 1 overall pick. Oh, my God. So that's why my response would be, munching on a few pieces of glass, I would say, is far more painful than rooting for any sports team.
All right, let's go. Let's just transition to the food question quickly before we wrap up this interview for tonight. We always ask our guests on the other show, and figure why not ask you as well. What are your thoughts on pineapple on pizza?
Say that again. I heard you cut out something pizza.
What's your thoughts on pineapple on pizza?
Pineapple on pizza. Okay. I'm a pizza lover, okay? And I like my fair share of varied pizzas. I will put most toppings on. But fruit and pizza do not belong together, okay? There is room for creativity, guys, okay? And I'm all for creativity, and I pride myself on having a decent palate, okay? It molded over time. I didn't come out of the womb and immediately love everything, okay? But pineapple on pizza? Come on. I mean, what are we talking about here? Cheeses, meats, appetizers? I'm all for it. Fruit and pizza do not belong together. You want to eat fruit before you have the main course? I'm all for that. You want to have a few pieces of pineapple as a refresher to cleanse the palate? Hey, guys, sign me up for that, okay? But then the pineapple gets moved out of the way, and then we reset the table, okay? The silverware, the napkins, and then we put the pizza at the center of the table, and we have our main meal. And the pineapple is nowhere to be found. End of discussion.
We only asked that question because this is somebody you may know very well. Dave LaGreca has got on a few rants on Busted Open about pizza.
Well, is he pro or con?
He's against it. It's basically cheese, bread, the
Yeah.
crust, and sauce and cheese, and that's it.
Yeah.
Dave LaGreca's regular guy pie. Sauce, cheese, meat. That's it.
So, meaning he's not even open. This is fascinating. Now I'm going to ask you some questions. He's not open.
Go ahead.
What about like vegetables? Is he open to that?
Sauce, meat, cheese.
No,
well, because
no,
see,
it's originally a plain pizza is all he started out his rant with.
wow, okay. Because see, I'm a mushroom pizza guy. I like, some vegetables or some other assortments which are not necessarily meats. I'll be open to that. So I thought maybe he would be open to that. We'll have to sit him down and have him taste some
However,
vegetables. Yes.
he did have a Hawaiian pizza. He
Now,
went
was that by choice or being forced into that?
it was a bet.
Okay.
He went to a concert here in Jersey and he had a Hawaiian pizza with the band because they were from California. And there is proof of him eating pineapple on a pizza, and he went right into a rant from there.
Do we know how much of it he consumed? Do we have any
An
visual
entire
evidence?
slice. An entire slice.
Okay, wow. So you know what? I give Dave LaGreca some credit because he's speaking from experience. His rant comes, from actually consuming it to a certain degree.
Well, originally the rant happened before he consumed the slice.
So I stand corrected then. But I'm in alliance with Dave. So, he and I see eye to eye in terms of the pineapple. I'd like to see him explore a little bit more with the topping, but I'm definitely anti-pineapple.
I'm a meat lover.
Well, there you go, Carl. So
give me meat, I'm good.
I love any vegetables in my pizza, so sign me up with that, Lance.
Hey, all right. So, listen, if we want to make this a pizza party at some point, guys, I'm open to that. That's not a problem.
Give me chicken, roasted garlic, jalapenos, and chopped tomatoes, and I'm cool right there.
Great,
Take the
now I want pizza
jalapenos off
tomorrow.
and I'll be there with you.
Great, now
I'll take one too.
Great, now I want pizza now.
You guys are actually making me hungry too. Maybe it's a good thing I had an earlier lunch, so now I can consume dinner after I get done with it.
Go.
Oh wow, thanks, Carl. I appreciate it.
Lance,
to rub it
I'm
in a
sitting
little
here
bit more.
going,
Yeah.
I smell this pizza. I want it. I want it.
Now, damn it, I need it now.
Lance, last question. Looking at the Super Bowl on Sunday, what's your prediction? Who do you see coming out on top?
I like the Chiefs winning a close game. I think it'll be decided within a touchdown. I think it'll come down to about 3 or 4 points, similar to the regular season meeting. And the reason why I like Kansas City goes back to some of the things we hit on. Number one, and listen, I could very well be wrong, but I'm not banking on Tampa Bay getting the turnovers that it's relied on the previous games. And if that doesn't happen and they don't have a shortened field, can you see Tampa Bay putting on an offensive clinic? My answer is no. I do think they're capable of putting points on the board on this Kansas City defense. So I'm not going to expect a low-scoring field goal battle, but I'm concerned about what they could do on the offensive side of the ball if they don't get the takeaways. And then the second thing is the pass protection because of Brady's limited mobility, and Kansas City's gotten home. They put pressure on Josh Allen, and they flustered him a little bit. Remember all the sacks Allen took where he ran backwards more so than forwards? Mm-hmm. So that concerns me too. And I think those two elements are going to be the difference makers in giving Kansas City the slight edge.
Well, we're gonna get into our Super Bowl predictions in a second here, but Lance, want to thank you so much for being our first live guest.
Nice.
On the sports show. Where can our listeners find you, and what do you have coming up?
Well, they can find me on social media, on Twitter. They can follow me at Lance Medow, one word, last name, Medow. Always make sure the spelling counts, okay? Don't be throwing an A in my last name, even though a lot of people like to do that. So that's why we emphasize the spelling. And as far as programming-wise, I am on Mad Dog Sports Radio, Channel 82, every Saturday and Sunday morning, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern, and that goes all year long. So look forward to interacting with sports fans and all topics that I cover on that show. They could also hear me on NFL radio. I host a variety of shows there too. I'm on Giants.com all season long, as well as the Giants Radio Network. I mean, I don't know how much time we have left on the program. I go through my whole resume, but I can tell I'm already losing the focus of all four of you. So
I'm sorry, I'm a New England fan.
Well, that's what I figured. I mean, I could tell we don't have any Giants people in this room because I didn't see any pom-poms going up. All right, well, John
Hello.
Is Eli
Mind
coming
you,
back?
Lance, I live in Jersey and I'm a New England fan.
Well, I can, Mike, if I had a nickel for every time a Giants fan called up and asked me if Eli's coming back after they get frustrated over a Daniel Jones turnover, I wouldn't even have time for you guys on this program anymore. I'd be sitting on my yacht somewhere and mumbling to myself. So there you go. But yes, they can follow me on Twitter and they can see all the programming and all the other activities that I'm involved in.
Lance, thank you so much again. You have an open invite anytime you want to come back on. We definitely want to have you on again.
I appreciate it, guys. It's always a blast talking football and sports, and a little disappointed they didn't get a wrestling question, but I guess I'll survive. It's okay. I know where I lie. I'm honored. I'm honored, and I want the record to show this. I'm honored that I made it on before Zig Fracazzi, who I believe has made an appearance on the show. So every time that Zig comes up, just make sure you remind him. Lance Medow was on the program as the first live guest before his underrated brilliance joined this program. Let the record speak for all of that. And I'll leave it at that.
And Lance,
Guys,
I'll just say this too, Lance. You do have an open invitation to come back onto the Nation Show and talk some wrestling, because I know you were an old school wrestling fan back
there.
then.
You go, Steven. You remembered correctly. See, I can't help you with the current landscape, but when it comes to old school stuff, I'll be more than happy to weigh in. No doubt about it.
And when you come back, I'll have to share a story of my short heyday as trying out in the NFL back in the late 90s.
Well, that'll be something, Mike. Now you really put me at the edge of my seat.
Oh, well, here, if we got a quick second. 96, I went to New England as a walk-on to try out. Bledsoe was the baby there. I'm getting my ass handed to me as a linebacker trying to blitz between those big 6'5", 320-pound offensive linemen. I accidentally get through on one shot and hit the quarterback. He throws the ball at me. The offensive line surrounds me. I think I'm going to get my ass kicked. And Bill Parcells comes running through, grabs my face mask, and he's yelling in my face and spitting, "What the F are you doing to my quarterback?" and this and that. And I thought I was going to die and get shipped back to California in a body bag. I ended up riding the pine the rest of that tryout. And one of the coaches came over and said, "Yeah, we're sending you home. You kind of did a bad thing there and hit the $1 million baby."
Not the $1 million man?
Well, in terms, yeah, they're $1 million. Well, because he just signed that big contract with them. And I think at that time, that was one of the biggest contracts signed in the NFL in the 90s, because guys weren't getting paid like we are today, or they are today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came through, kind of couldn't get the brakes on, man. At that time, 5'11", 245 coming through, blitz. Yeah.
Well, just think about this. You wouldn't have had the opportunity to debate whether or not pineapple on pizza is good or bad had you had success on the NFL. So just think how gracious somebody up there was to you, Mike, that, this was far more important for you to discuss than, anything else that you could have achieved on the football field. Though I can only imagine, Mike, what it was like then for you to have to watch the Patriots go on and build a dynasty. And if you're a Raiders fan, to then have it come at the expense of your team, by the way.
This is true.
Yeah. Yeah, that hurts.
Boy,
it
that's
still
rough.
hurts, man.
Boy, yeah.
But I don't know what the highlight was, hitting Bledsoe or getting spit on by Parcells in his rant about me hitting his quarterback.
Well, I don't know. You could go either way. I'll have to put a poll question up on one of my future shows. We'll get the nation to weigh in on that. So, guys, listen, had a blast. Really appreciate you having me on. Take care.
Thank you,
sir.
You guys. Take care.
Folks, that was Lance Medow, who was just joining us, man.
Wow.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff.
Great
Always
guy.
good to talk with him.
Let's wrap this baby up right now.
Gotcha.
Gonna go quickly around the table. If anyone wants to chime in on Discord, they can. Super Bowl predictions. Now, you don't have to give the score, because we're not gonna. All you have to give me is who do you think is gonna win, and who's gonna be the MVP. Steven, we're gonna go with you first.
You got to go with me. And this is a hard game to predict because, man, quick side note, back in 2017 when they faced the Falcons in that Super Bowl, I picked the Falcons to win that, initially basically to win that game. And Brady burned me, 34-28. You're asking for my prediction about this game. On one hand, I want to go with Kansas City because I know how great of a team they are. But, man, I bet against Brady once. I can't do it again. I can't. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay 34-31 in a very close game. My heart says Kansas City, but my gut says Tampa Bay.
Who do you think wins MVP then?
Brady.
Carl?
I'm going to shock everybody right now. I'm not going Tampa Bay. I'm going Kansas City. As much as I like Brady, I can't do it. Mahomes is the upcoming star.
Yes, he
He's
is.
starting the dynasty of this year. He deserves it, and he's my MVP. And if I had to pick, I would say it would be a 1-game possession difference.
Nice. Hijacker?
I'm going with Kansas City, and 5 years ago, that would have been against all my morals because of who I represented. But I think Kansas City has this one in the bag. I think Mahomes is going to get the MVP. He'll be the Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
We also have a quick one from Stephen PA with his Super Bowl prediction. He says Tom Brady is going to win this home game. Leonard Fournette is going to run all over KC. Tampa can shut down Kelsey, but not Hill. Tampa Bay 34, Kansas City 31.
Okay, because Steve has my score. Okay. Two great metalheads think alike.
With me, this one's a tough one because you can go either way. But I think I gotta hint towards more of Kansas City. What I think this game is going to come down to, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier today, I think this is going to come down to fourth quarter, under 2 minutes, whoever has the ball last. I think what's going to end up happening is, with how closely contested this game is, whichever team makes that first mistake,
It's over.
watch that be their downfall.
But John, I would make the argument that if Brady makes a mistake, this is one of those games that, yes, they are hosting the Super Bowl for the first time for any team, but there is that slim other possibility that Kansas City may come into their building and shellac them with a whipping and win the Super Bowl. That's why it's so hard to predict this game because, like I said, the one time I bet against Brady, I lose. I can't bet against the man. He's that good, whether we like it or not. But my heart says Kansas City because this team is so damn good. So good.
Well, unfortunately, my team has had the luxury of beating Brady twice in the Super Bowl, so
This is true. And
I can bet against them.
John, you may have the most important piece in this game, Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah. I said this.
Against Brady in the 2008 Super Bowl, 19 and new, 5 sacks, a bunch of hits. What happened? He lost.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you guys remember at the beginning of the show, I stressed this that this was a history-making game?
Yeah, and we're going to get to this.
Okay. My question is, do you know why I said that?
I think I know what it is, but go ahead.
One, if Brady wins this Super Bowl, it will be the first time ever a quarterback has 7 NFL Super Bowl rings.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Also, too, on the other hand, if Mahomes wins with Kansas City, it'll be the first time since 2008 season.
2004.
2004?
Yes.
That a team has gone back-to-back Super Bowls. The Patriots were the last ones to do it. That's why this is a history-making Super Bowl. Now, do I feel that Brady needs this win? No.
No, agree.
Would it be nice to see him get it? Making history? For history purposes, yes. But I don't want to see him win. I want Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs to win.
Yeah. Hijacker, I know we have some comments coming from Discord because I just got the notification on my phone. So what do we have coming up from Discord before we wrap up the show for tonight?
Kevin in Mass says he has Tampa Bay 38, Kansas City 34. He thinks the loss of Eric Fisher for the Chiefs is going to be a problem, but not a big enough problem to keep them out of the game. Brady and Mahomes will both have 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill is a monster again. And then we have Marks would like to call in. You want to take a call from Marks?
Let's go for it quickly.
All right,
Marks.
Mark, go ahead and unmute yourself and come on in, brother.
Good evening, y'all.
What's
Good
up?
evening.
What's up, buddy?
Evening.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
All right.
I just got a quick comment about who I think is gonna win. Okay,
Mhm.
hear me out. I have reasons why both teams should win, but we all got to go with one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I've been
Okay.
told.
Okay, here's my reason for the Chiefs winning. They'll be how can I say it? They're going to go for 2 in a row, right?
Yes.
Now that's one reason, and it'll give Mahomes his second ring, which will make him go on to the future as a Hall of Famer. But another reason is this will be how can I say it? It'll be Mahomes sticking it to Brady by not giving him another ring and Mahomes earning his second one. Now for the Bucks. They haven't been to the Super Bowl since 2002 with Gruden.
Yep.
So this giving them a win would be a plus for the Bucks. Also, it's Tom Brady's 10th Super Bowl, and if he wins, this is basically ring number 7.
Yep.
So he'll be the first player to win that will hold 7 rings. But another reason. There are some Kansas City fans that I know, and with the Bucks winning, this could stick it to them. Not Ashley.
Save
Yeah.
that.
I was waiting for that one.
I'm not talking. I'm talking about other people I know that are in my city. But
Good save on that one.
call, guys, and I'll check you guys later.
Thanks,
Yep.
Mark.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. But yeah, guys, I think it's time for us to wrap this up.
All right.
We'll go around the table quickly. Hijacker, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mac, MISTAMACC. You can holler at me all things wrestling, music, sports, boxing. Let's do it.
Carl,
You can find me on Twitter at Smoke452.
Stevie Wonder,
You can find me on Twitter at Steven_Wyand, talking all things wrestling, rock and roll, and sports.
you can find me on Twitter as well at John_Blaine, and you can see how I had a family reunion today at Home Depot. And some people get that joke. I had to I had to throw that one in there. But guys, and also before I forget, you can also find the show on Twitter at capital O, capital N, capital S, and then the S part is for sports, capital S show. So it's ON Sports Show. So you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, you name it. We're on every platform. Coming up next week on the show, we will have a recap of Super Bowl 55, and we will get more into the off season because, man, oh man, is there a lot of stuff to get to
Yes.
at that point. Want to thank Lance for joining us this evening. For Lance Medow, for Hijacker Mike, for Carl, for Steven, I'm John. This has been another installment of Our Nation's Sports Show. Follow us, subscribe to the YouTube page, and we will see you guys next Thursday.
Peace.
Peace.